Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches and spectators, welcome to the power rankings for ADL Season 2, Staraptor Division. Today I am joined by the lovely, handsome, smart, and talented owner of this channel, the Tobster.
That's me.
Everybody say hello, give him a warm welcome. Toby, say hi.
Hi, it's me. I'm objectively correct, and so is Raz.
So true. Extremely true. Um, Thanks so much for clicking on the video. Obviously, I know you guys have been waiting on this for a while, but it's about to be fucking awesome. Okay? So don't get your knickers in a twist. This is going to be heat. It's fire content. And you're welcome,
Yeah,
frankly.
frankly, you ungrateful pieces of shit. Like, the amount of where PRs I see is insane. Honestly,
Unreal.
it's genuinely unreal. I mean, like, come on, the amount of work we have to put into this stuff to make it look good and sound good and just be good, and you're gonna rush this. You're gonna rush perfection. No, fuck you,
Yeah.
you pieces
Yeah,
of
fuck
shit,
you.
man. Good.
So basically, to make all that up to us, I want everybody down in the comments saying thank you, Toby, thank you, Raz. These PRs are perfect and objectively correct. And if you don't comment that, I assume that you hate me and I hate you.
Absolutely
So get a
correct.
move on.
Genuinely, there's no notes on that one. Absolutely fucking correct. Man, it's good to be back.
It really
You and
is.
I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, my fault.
I mean, yeah.
I know
Anyway,
you. I
uh,
know you weren't gonna say it, which is why I had
and
to.
anyway, we're gonna get right into these PRs for you guys now. You guys know how PRs work. It's not anything new, so we're gonna get into that here in just a second. And away we go. Okay, and before we get into ranking our first team, I'm going to go over our methodology just really quickly so you know how this works. Just like the last one, this is an ADL power ranking, which means that you have to take into account that Pokemon on this tier list with a point value of 36 points or lower are allowed to Terra. Everything else is not allowed to do so. So our rankings were made with that in mind. This is not a standard format. Please keep that in mind. Secondly, don't take this shit to heart, bozo. These are just our opinions. This is just supposed to be content for fun, to hold you over, for just some extra stuff for the server, for the season, and all that stuff. So, there's no reason to get bent out of shape about anything that is said in this video. Like some people.
And frankly, just a quick sidebar about that. Like the first of all, I can't stress this enough. This is not a statement about any of the coaches who have these teams.
No,
These are supposed to be helpful. Like if we have criticisms of your team and you think we're wrong, I mean, we're not, first of
no.
all. But also like that's fine. Like you know the ins and outs of your team, but also like it gives you pointers to like make improvements to your roster from a different perspective or how to draft better in the future. And it's not a seeding of how we think people are going to do. It like obviously mono normal is still not good.
No.
And we didn't, the ranking that we put it in wasn't wrong because the roster wasn't very good, but it won
Exactly.
because different coaches and different stuff. So just like chill out.
Yeah, it's a prime fucking example. Just chill the fuck out. And like, if you have differing opinions, that's fine. But rule number 3, we're fucking correct. So I don't know what you
Every
want.
time.
Every single time, we are objectively correct. But on that note, if you have any disagreements with our rankings at all, please feel free to message Otto on Discord, and he'll be happy to hear your complaints. He doesn't seem to care about power rankings really at all. No issue there. So I'm sure he'll be able to let you vent to him. He'll have no issue with that.
Yep, so true.
Yep. Thank you, Otto, for volunteering. Anyway, on to the first ranking. Yay!
Yep.
And coming in at number 11, we have the Durham Tauros, hosted by Alligator. I don't know why his name is Muck Enthusiast on the dock, but I mean, he is, so it works. He's got Talonflame, Gallade, Chi-Yu, Suicune, Tinkatun, Pori Z, Quillfish, Hisui, Dugong, Dodrio, and Minior. So the first thing that I have a problem with is that the type synergy here is just dog shit.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's really really bad. There's a lot of repeat types, which will naturally cause a lot of repeat weaknesses. So there's a bit of an electric weakness going on. There's a bit of a water weakness going on. There's a tiny bit of a fighting weakness going on, honestly, as well.
There's there's like a ground weakness.
A little bit of a ground weakness. It feels like this team is weak in multiple angles to a lot of different very common types, which does not lend itself well, because this isn't a very bulky team outside of like Suicune, and maybe I don't think Dugong's really that bulky.
I think Tinkaton has decent bulk, and then Eevee like Quillfish, but
but even still, kind of on the frail side to have such significant type weaknesses and overlapping type weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I feel like, so what this team tries to do here, I mean, what it tries to do is pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of really good support here. You've got Fake Out, you've got Thunder Wave, you've got Feint, you've got Priority Tailwind, you've got Icy Wind, you've got Snarl, Intimidate, backup Tailwind, backup Icy Winds. I mean, it's you've got really good and like thick layered support all over this team. But the problem is it's kind of almost all support outside of like Chi-Yu and Gallade, and I guess on occasion Tinkaton if you need it to be.
Yeah. And Porygon.
And Porygon a little bit. But I'm not the Porygon believer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's just, it feels weird, because it's like, first of all, I have... I know that people are gonna like clip this when Ollie inevitably pops off with one of his low tiers.
Sure.
But Quillfish it gets a little smidgen of respect for me, a little bit, and that's because of Wade. Shout out Wade. Dugong, Dodrio, and Minior get no respect from me. I love Dodrio. It's not a good Pokemon. Dugong gets Fake Out, I guess, but it's not a good Pokemon. Minior is not real, especially without redirection. So you have 4 Pokemon on this team that are effectively doing nothing. And then your big damage dealers are Gallade, Chi-Yu, and Porygon Z, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, Talonflame notoriously has a very low attack stat, and it can still put up numbers because the base power on its stab moves are very high. But, like, it's not really reliable damage, especially because both of its strongest moves give recoil, and then you lose priority on stuff. And then, like, Suicune is bulky, but it's not very strong. Tinkaton can do well offensively if you really want it to, but, like, usually you don't. And oftentimes it needs, like, swagger, and this team doesn't really have that. And then you have Porygon Z. And it's like, if you have... Chi-Yu can stand on its own. It's Chi-Yu.
Yes.
It's, like, obviously. But Beads of Ruin is such a potent ability that usually you want to have a few Pokemon that can take advantage of it, and you don't. This team has one. It has Porygon Z, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, sure, if you really wanted to run, like, specially offensive Suicune, I guess you could, but it's just, everything else is just kind of counterintuitive. And then, at the same time, a lot of pieces on this team are attempting to be very bulky. And so, in that sense, it feels like Beads of Ruin is anti-synergistic with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because bulky Pokemon like Suicune and Tinkaton and even Gallade, who have pretty respectable special defense stats, are all of a sudden much easier to kill because Chi-Yu is ruining everything for everyone. It's actually kind of impressive that this comp is so bad for Chi-Yu, because I don't think I've seen a comp where I saw Chi-Yu on it and went, this is a bad comp for Chi-Yu.
Yeah, and I just think especially in this format too, like you said, it's not it's not really doing a whole lot here outside of supporting Porygon Z and also making the rest of your team weaker to special attacks. But if you're wanting to make Chi-Yu like a special attacking threat in its own right, I mean, Chi-Yu is not very bulky, and it's also weak to a lot of different types. And it also can't Terra. So, from where I'm sitting, it feels like Chi-Yu is going to be on the field maybe a turn, maybe two, and is going to be dead within those couple turns. And you can't really do much to stop it because you don't even really have good redirection here that I'm seeing. No. So,
I don't think you have any at all.
Yeah, nothing really at all. And I think it's going to be hard to position Chi-Yu because, or even hard to justify bringing Chi-Yu in some areas because it's going to be so easy to kill, and it's really hard to protect it here with the comp that you have here. And I don't get what Chi-Yu's doing here, I guess is what I'm saying.
And it's made worse by that type synergy that we were talking about before. Yeah. Because it's like I'm looking at it and I'm looking at partners that you might want to have next to it. And it's like, if you lead it with Talonflame, I'm clicking Rock Slide. If you lead it with Tinkaton, I'm clicking a ground move. If you lead it with Porygon Z, I'm clicking fighting moves. It's same with like Dugong, and same with Dodrio and Minior. And so it's like it shares a lot of weaknesses with a lot of Pokemon on this team. And so it makes it very, very easy to cover options on leads. And then I feel like it's kind of hard to get into a position next to Porygon Z, the only Pokemon on this team that it really supports, in a beneficial way, because you want Tailwind to go up, but then you only have so many turns. Right. And then you have to jostle for positioning with your opponent to get them both on the board next to each other without being threatened by the other person's fighting type. And by that point, how many turns of Tailwind can you realistically expect to have left?
Right. And like, to Ollie's credit, or to this team's credit, there are a lot of really good Terra targets on this team. Like, Tinkaton is phenomenal. Gallade is a great Terra target. Porygon Z is phenomenal as well. I mean, you've got really good options for Terra, but the problem is, with that really bad type synergy, it becomes a game of who gets the Terra. And again, it's kind of the same problem I have with the Executors, is that you're not really gonna be able to have the flexibility needed to bounce a Terra around to different mons. And oftentimes you might be paralyzed trying to figure out who to Terra, because this synergy is just really bad. It's just
yeah, and it's like, I feel like because the offensive pieces are so limited here, even though you do have this support, I feel like it won't be too difficult to ignore the support, kill the damage dealer, and then all of a sudden, in not that many turns, you don't have enough offensive pressure left in the tank to win the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's Ollie.
Hey, I've seen, again, it's not a judge on coaches at all. I've seen Ollie draft teams like this consistently and make playoffs with it also consistently. So, I'm not doubting that he can make this team work. I don't like looking at it personally.
In the hands of a lesser player, this team's going 0-10.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Very much so. I think that's about all I have to say about the Durham Tauros. Overall, it doesn't really mesh very well together. It's like you're always going to have an awkward time getting positioning right. Your offensive threats are always going to get eliminated far faster than you think, and these type weaknesses are going to confuse you in prep trying to find your correct Terra targets, and I don't know. They're really good individual pieces, there's no doubt about that, but just working together, this team doesn't seem like it does.
And last point, if your opponent matches Tailwind, the best speed tier that you have with your offensive pieces is 100. So, look out.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, onward to number 10. Yay!
Onward and upward. This team doesn't have a ground type. Wee woo, wee woo. No ground type on this team. This motherfucker drafted Kilowattrel and no ground type. That's crazy. But now that that's out of the way, number 10 is the Mexico City Haluka, coached by Sebsi.
Haluka.
Uh, and it consists of Conkeldurr, Kilowattrel, Farigiraf, Goldengo, Salazzle, Iron Leaves, Primarina, Low Kicks, Kirlia, and Mankey. And it's it. I don't hate this team, but when I was first talking about it, I was like, it seems like average or like a little below average, but I was like, it's not horrible. It probably won't rank that low. And then I looked at the rest of the teams, and most of them are very, very good.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
But yeah, there are just some oddities with this team. First of all, like I said, no ground type. I believe in Talonflame, Emboss has. No, he was talking about it. Who has Kilowattrel in Talonflame?
Oh, I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
but they have
matter.
Amboss with it.
Oh, then that is Emboss. You're right.
It is Emboss. Okay, cool,
Yep.
cool. And holy shit, that core is disgusting. That's so gross.
Yes.
Kilowattrel, it is one of, if not the best Disquake partner in the game. It's so good because it shuts down Intimidate it shuts down Intimidate for the opponent, which you want to do for Earthquake users. It sets Tailwind, which gives typically slower Earthquake users the speed advantage, and then it discharges and it's immune to Earthquake. And it's like, it does so much for a team, and then this team has no ground type at all.
Yeah.
And so it feels like that aspect of Kilowattrel is kind of wasted. And then even though Kilowattrel is so fast, it feels like the speed on this team is just weird.
These tiers look a little. They're more awkward than the past couple, I would say.
Yeah. And it's like they're good, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like you will. It's just awkward to set up, right? Because it's like, obviously Kilowattrel is really fast. It's based like what, 120, 125?
125.
And then, like, Salazzle was really fast, and if you wanted to run, like, booster speed Iron Leaves, that's fast. And then Goldengo under Tailwind is serviceable. And then, like, Conkeldurr and Farigiraf and Primarina are all perfectly good under Trick Room. The problem that I have is that, like, with Kilowattrel just feels really scared of like fake out in general, and so oftentimes in order to maintain your focus sash, because Kilowattrel is also relatively easy to kill, you want to get around fake out in some way. And it's like, yeah, you can protect or you can like Terra Ghost, but the a lot of the times you're probably wanting to lead it next to like Farigiraf to protect yourself from priority, which A can stop Tailwind and B can make Tailwind kind of obsolete. But Farigiraf is not very fast. And so if you use Farigiraf to help set up Tailwind, then you're in a position where it doesn't really matter anyway, because Kilowattrel was probably faster before, and Farigiraf is probably not faster afterwards, and then you're lacking like a little bit of offensive pressure in that position. And similarly, in order to, if you're trying to set Trick Room, you want to protect your setter, right? And this team doesn't have any redirection to help with that, and the only fake out is Salazzle, who has a very good speed tier, but not for Trick Room.
Right.
And so you use Salazzle to help Farigiraf set Trick Room, and all of a sudden, again, you're in a position where you're not exerting that much pressure because Salazzle is out of position and pretty easy to kill, and Farigiraf doesn't exert that much pressure on its own. Sure, you can do like Hyper Voice Throat Spray, but if Farigiraf is the only threat that you have on the field, then it's pretty easy to double target and take down. And so it's like, it's not bad. It's just awkward.
Yeah, yeah. I
Like,
agree with awkward. But I don't know. The other thing for me, specifically that I noticed is the no, it's really just that the speed tiers are fine. It's just the speed control is awkward, and at least in my opinion, I feel like this trick room mode is in and of itself just a little bit underdeveloped. Like Conkelder Fergraph is fine. Primarina, I guess, is fine as a trick room mon. I mean, I know it does well in a trick room and everything, but I don't think 60 speed is a very real trick room speed, especially when you're going against teams with a fully developed, dedicated trick room mode.
yeah.
So at the end of the day, I feel like, at least in your trick room matchup, your best bet there is Fergraph and Conkelder. And like you said, it's kind of hard to lead both of those and get trick room up on the same turn. You're gonna have to pivot around and do a lot of positioning to get trick room up and still have a healthy Conkelder and enough mons in the back to utilize trick room correctly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's going to fall apart, at least in terms of trick room. And on the fast end is honestly very good. But I personally don't know if I would keep Iron Leaves around. I'm just not an Iron Leaves believer in general. I think that thing misses KOs and calcs constantly. I don't think, and to be fair, I haven't done extensive work with Iron Leaves, but every time I've used it, I've missed a calc by 5 or 6 percentage points. It always seems like it fucking dies instantly, even with it having the ability to Terra here. I think it's going to struggle to stay alive on the field a lot of the times. I don't know. I'm not a believer in that. Goldengo is great. I have no notes about Goldengo. But again, I feel like in terms of a Tailwind mode, you could really benefit from a faster Pokemon that isn't Iron Leaves.
Yeah. First of all, without access to electric terrain, Iron Leaf struggles even more to hit calcs because Psycho Blade, or whatever that move is called, doesn't have the boost. And so it kind of just loses any real pressure that it would exert from its signature move, and it just becomes like a middling grass and psychic type. And then with a typing that is so frankly abysmal defensively, it feels like it has to Terra every time it hits the field, and I feel like you have a lot of better Terra targets like Conkelder.
I also feel like this is a 6-mon team.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I feel like you're always bringing Conkelder, Killo, Farigiraf, Goldengo, Salazzle, Leaves, and then sometimes swapping around something for Primarina. But Lokix is just not a real Pokemon in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even with
sorry, Charles.
I'm sorry, Charles. I'm sorry to say it. I just don't think Lokix is a real Pokemon, even with the ability to Terra in this format. And Curlia and Mankey obviously speak for themselves. They're 2 and 1 pointers. They're just kind of there because you ran out of points. But so I feel like that in and of itself is going to be relatively easy for your opponent to prep for, because you're really only prepping for 7 mons. And honestly, I feel like in a lot of matchups you're leaving Iron Leaves anyway.
And it's you mentioned it's awkward to lead Conkelder and Farigiraf. And just a quick to go back to that for a second, because Conk wants to activate Guts to really get its damage off the ground, it very often wants to play defensively on that first turn so it can guarantee that you activate Flame Orb. And so if it becomes very easy to just double target Farigiraf and not let Trick Room go up at all. And then Conkelder, even though it has good bulk, without the speed advantage, it can be easy to take down if your opponent is positioning semi-well. I also think Goldengo works well with Kilowattrel, but again, if your opponent is matching Tailwind, which is very common,
Yeah.
even in the teams we've seen just like so far, um, then Goldengo gets outsped pretty easily. And what I will say is that without the ability to Terra, I think Goldengo really appreciates redirection. Because like dark type moves are pretty common, especially if you're going into a Goldengo team. Dark type moves are very common. Ghost type moves are very common. Fire type moves are very common. Ground type moves are very common. Those are all like big, good types that are really pretty all over the place, except ground types this season for whatever fucking reason. And so it's like without the ability to protect Goldengo, I feel like it might end up being easy to kill, which is not great for what is probably the best Pokemon on your team.
Yeah. No, I agree. I guess the other, I didn't even think about that when we were talking about the Trick Room mode. Farigiraf can't Terra, which without any good redirection might also make it struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, Farigiraf's fairly bulky. So, I mean, I don't doubt you can calc it to survive a lot of good stuff, but there's always going to be that stray, ridiculous Terra Dark or something like that that takes that out. But I don't know how much of a problem that will actually be. But
however, if you do get the speed control, this team is putting up numbers.
Oh yeah, this team is very good.
That's why it's tiered above the other teams, because like I think it will struggle to get itself the advantage, but the second it gets that advantage, this team is going. If you have like Acid Spray, Salazzle next to Goldengo, and you have the speed advantage, what's living? Nothing? That's what I thought.
Pretty much.
If you have Guts Conkeldurr under Trick Room, very, very difficult to take it out and not get code or two KO'd by any move, especially with the assist of Drain Punch, being able to heal off the hits that it's taking and the burn chip. And like it gets really, really good coverage. Like obviously Drain Punch and like stab fighting moves are good. It gets rock type moves, which are really good. It gets other stuff that I looked at when I was doing these notes and I'm now forgetting. Like it has a really good move pool. It's picking up kills. If Primarina is moving first, that Pokemon like picks up KOs, and then Kilowattrel, if you run Wind Power, which he did into me when we fought, then that Mon can also, or if you get a competitive boost, like the team has potential to do well. It just, I think it's going to struggle to get itself into a position where it can do that at all.
Yeah. I think that's all we can yap on about him, to be honest here. It's you've got very good output, you've got a strong team. It's just the speed control and the positioning might be a little wonky. But that's about all I gotta say about the Haluka.
Yeah.
And we are on to number 9. Yay!
Let's go.
Oh my god. And in number 9 we have the Kansas City Kelios, coached by Sea Shrubs. And he's got a roster of Raging Bolt, Murkrow, Lilligant, Hisui, Alchemy, Wartortle, Gothitelle, Torkoal, Bastiodon, Tauros, and Venonat. I mean, the first thing you can see is obviously a pretty decent sun mode. A really good sun mode. But I think that's kind of where it falls off. I think the sun mode is definitely carrying this team a whole hell of a lot here.
Yeah.
Like Lilligant Hisui is really good. I think Unova Lilligant would have been actively worse for this team, so I think Hisui is the best Lilligant form here. Chlorophyll is obviously great. That physical attack is obviously appreciated for your sun mode, because Raging Bolt brings up the special end of it. Lilligant does make this team a bit more balanced on the physical special split. Otherwise, it probably would have been a little bit too special heavy. So there's a good pick there. The first thing I notice is that Murkrow feels weird and borderline actively just not necessary here. Like having the ability to do manual sun is good, but I think you could have gotten that out of something a lot cheaper. And everything that Murkrow has to offer, which is like taunt, priority tailwind, haze, I guess, if you squint at it. Um, it's stuff that you could have gotten in a Pokemon that is a lot cheaper. Specifically because I don't think all of those moves are even necessarily required for this team here. I don't feel like you need all of that support, but as a secondary option, it's nice. I just think you could have gotten it for less than 40 points.
Yeah.
Because there were priority Tailwind users that were much lower than this, and that seems to be the only thing you really, really need it for, and there were a lot of cheaper options that can Terra, and also have their Prankster options, or their Gale Wings options, or etc., etc. That's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, really the only purpose I can see, even for Tailwind, is, like, maybe it's good for Tauros, I guess, but doesn't Tauros have, like, Flygon stat for attack, or 110, I think?
Yeah, 110.
Which is not that remarkable. And then, like, I guess if your opponent also has priority Tailwind, which, again, not uncommon, then you can match their Tailwind and get the Chlorophyll boost on Lilligant to guarantee that Lilligant always has the speed advantage. But that, positionally, I don't like where that leaves you after you set Tailwind. And then it's like, and again, it's just hard to get in place, because then it's like, where does Torkoal come in? How do you activate Chlorophyll? And that's just weird to me. And I feel like you don't really need it. Like,
Yeah.
Raging Bolt doesn't need speed control. It appreciates it, but have you looked at this Pokemon? It doesn't care. And then Torkoal is good thanks to Lilligant, and it's like, and then aside from that, what Pokemon is doing anything with Tailwind? And I think it's none of them.
Yeah.
And then I feel like this team only has 4 Pokemon. Is
really?
that crazy?
I mean, I don't think that's that crazy. I feel like it has 4 Pokemon that are actually doing something meaningful.
Yeah. Because it's like, I appreciate the attempt at a Trick Room mode. Because Torkoal is really good in Trick Room. But Raging Bolt speed tier is very easy to underspeed.
Yeah.
For Trick. Obviously Murkrow's bad. Obviously Lilligant is bad. Alchemy is a weird stat also.
It's kind of the same thing.
I don't think it's right, exactly. Wartortle isn't a real Pokemon. It gets Fake Out and that's it. Gothitelle, I think, is I think it's a bad setter. And then Bastiodon is not a real Pokemon. And so, it can Terra. Wow.
Hey,
I don't care.
Hey, Bastiodon can Terra, Raz.
You know what? You're right. And you know what else? I don't give a shit. It's
okay.
Like, that Pokemon is bad. And then 16 points. This motherfucker is not worth 16 points. I'll tell you that right now. I am a Venonat believer. I will say that much. But like, it's weak to fire, and you're boosting fire type moves thanks to Sun. And so it's like, that just is very strange. And so I think the Trick Room mode kind of exists, but only because of Torkoal. And aside from that, it's just not real. And so it's like, you're bringing probably Raging Bolt, Murkrow, Lilligant, Gothitelle, Torkoal +1 to the match. And it's like, again, that's very easy to prep for. Like, Murkrow, I think Manual Sun on Murkrow here is good and important, because if you lose Sun, then this team is bad.
Yeah.
And so being able to manually reset it with Prankster and Priority is good and important. And then everything else Murkrow does, I don't care about on this team.
But again, you could have gotten priority weather setting a lot cheaper. Like, the Prankster bugs are right there. Morgrim's right there.
Even something like Impidimp.
Seriously, I mean, like, because if that's its only job, then there, you saved yourself 30-something points. Like,
and at least Impidimp gets Fake Out.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And it's like, I don't know. It's just, and like, Lilligant is physical, but if you manage to KO Lilligant, there is a lot of special attackers on this team.
That is true. Yeah, it becomes very
So,
special heavy.
yeah, if you can't stop Sun, you're in trouble.
Sure.
And if you can, you're kind of chilling.
Yeah, you're not going to struggle too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am a bit higher of a believer in Gothitelle than you are, clearly. But with that being kind of your primary fake out user, you kind of have to choose, like, am I fake outing or am I trick rooming? And
right.
Gothitelle also does admittedly have an awkward speed tier for trick room as well. So that's something too. It makes getting trick room up kind of awkward still here. I feel like we keep repeating that, but it's just true for all these lower teams. Like getting trick room up seems extremely difficult in some scenarios and awkward at best.
Yeah. And it puts you in a position where you have to be positioning intelligently, and if you get one thing wrong and you bring in Torkoal at the wrong time and it dies, all of a sudden Trick Room is bad for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's fine, because like I think Venonat with Rage Powder, Gothitelle sets Trick Room, Venonat takes 2 attacks, dies, and then you bring in something else. But that's only if your opponent lets you do that. Safety Goggles is around all the time. If someone has like a spread move, that's problematic. And then the reason I don't think Gothitelle is bad, the reason I think it's a bad Trick Room setter is because a lot of the better Trick Room setters have something that intrinsically stops some common form of Trick Room denial, right? Like Slowbro and Slowking can't get taunted, Farigiraf can't get faked out, Mimikyu can't get faked out either. Like it has something built in to stop something like that, and all of them are also very difficult to kill. Gothitelle doesn't have any of that, and it's not super hard to kill. And so it's like, and then it has a weird speed tier, and so it's like, what is it doing after Trick Room goes up? And it's just, I think it's good on different teams.
It's not good here. I do agree with that. I can get behind that. Yeah. You know what else kind of grinds my gears about this team?
Yeah.
There's no fucking ground type press.
Dude, I'm gonna lose it. Like it's actually insane.
And it would be so easy to do too. Again, like we said, you could have gotten Manual Sun, something way cheaper than Murkrow, and spent your 30-something points on a ground type, and you'd be chilling, honestly.
Yeah. Especially considering how many good ground types function well under Trick Room or under Priority Tailwind. Like,
yes, absolutely.
It's crazy out here, bro.
The only other thing that I think I want to add for this team is that it kind of feels one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It feels like there's not enough flexibility to switch up your sets from week to week. It feels like you're always gonna want to run the same thing on every Pokemon. Hell, even like down to the fucking item on each Pokemon, it feels like you're gonna want to do the same thing every single time, and that's gonna be obviously easy in prep for your opponent. Like Torkoal can kind of do different things, but it feels like it's always gonna want to be the slow fire move spammer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lilligant's always going to want to be the Chlorophyll, Rage Powder, Sleep Powder, 2 other physical attacking moves with Sash on it. You're never, or after you too. Like there's never really much wiggle room in your sets. I feel.
Does Lilligant get? Am I fucking stupid?
Does it get Rage Powder? I thought it did.
Am I the dumbest person of all time?
It could be me. It actually. Let's Google that.
I don't think it's you. I'm Googling it right now. Lilligant.
Stand by. Technical difficulties.
It's just not. We'll cut this out.
No, we'll leave it in. I'm a dumbass. Lilligant doesn't get Rage Powder, but again, even still, my point still fucking stands.
Yes. Yeah. Still very linear.
It's still very, very linear. Like Raging Bolt can kind of flex its role a little bit. There's a couple moves you could slot out maybe, but like you're always gonna run Draco Meteor, Thunderclap, Thunderbolt, Electro Web, AV half the time, and then like leftovers Protect if you want to try to flex that a little bit. You can't really do anything with the speed stat, so
Yeah,
there's no adjustments there.
yeah. And like it's good at what it does, right? Like
Yeah,
it's either Calm Mind or Salt Vest, but like it has a pretty deep move pool and it will perform well. It's Raging Bolt. But it's just like
you know
it's
what's
still
coming.
pretty easy to call out. And since it can't Terra, it gets cooked by ground types and dragon types and fairy types and ice types and so on and so forth. And then my last, final, and frankly greatest gripe against this team is that I don't think Alchemy is good on this comp. And
No,
the
that's fair.
reason for that is because I think its speed tier is kind of out of place. Because it's like primarily what Alchemy wants to do is decorate. It does other stuff, but the reason you take Alchemy over a different fairy type is because decorate is a good move. And or because it's your favorite Pokemon and Alchemy is cool as hell.
Absolutely.
But like it feels like it feels like there aren't any good decorate targets, which isn't to say none of these Pokemon would appreciate a +2 to their relevant attack stat. That's not true.
Right.
But it's like you can decorate Raging Bolt, but you're going for Thunderclap a lot, which means you're oftentimes not getting the boost before you attack. And admittedly, there is stuff that like you can do with that, where you could run like a really bulky Assault Vest set and just rely on Alchemy to help you pump out damage. But if like Thunderclap is his best move, and so if you're going for that, the Decorate boost doesn't activate until the next turn, and obviously Murkrow doesn't care. And if you're decorating Lilligant, it's moving before you because it's faster, and you will usually want Sun Up, and so that's not super helpful. And then if you decorate into Torkoal, then you leave Torkoal vulnerable, and considering how bad its special defense is, it's probably going to die or take a ton of damage. And so it's like, and then the other Pokemon that want a decorate are non-existent. Like, it just I don't know. It feels like the pieces that are good are really good.
Yeah.
And there's like four of them, and then the rest of the Pokemon I'm like I don't really understand how they're going to contribute.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey man,
But
Bastiodon
this
could pop off a week.
it could against really physical teams, Iron Defense Body Press could definitely do
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, the Sun mode being as good and potent as it is basically the only reason this team is as high as it is, because that Sun mode is fucking crazy.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I so I said one last thing, but I have one more gripe. I promise this is my last one.
Go for it.
You don't really have very good Terra targets, honestly. Lilligant seems kind of like the
True.
only one that is potent.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, Lilligant is a extremely good Terra target and a really good user here, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the thing is, your main special attackers, Raging Bolt and Torkoal, can't Terra, so they're going to be vulnerable in that sense at least.
Mm-hmm.
When are you ever going to want to Terra Bastiodon or Tauros over Lilligant?
Mm-hmm.
When are you ever going to want to Terra Alchemy over Lilligant? I just think like your only real target is Lilligant, and that's going to be pretty easy for other coaches to lock down and prep, and they'll figure out your gimmick pretty fast after the first couple weeks, is the way I see it at least.
Yeah. Like I think Gothitelle is a fine target for like defensively, but it's only good for like one turn.
Yeah.
And again, it's very easy. Like if you use your Terra to set Trick Room, it's very easy for your opponent to either outposition you or kill Torkoal and make Trick Room bad for you. And so it's like I don't know. It's just weird. Also, y- I think Wartortle and Venonat are at odds with each other because, like, you can run Sash Venonat, but I've run Venonat before, and I find that it actually tends to prefer Eviolite because you can Rage Powder to do whatever you want to do, and it gives you extra turns to, like, throw Sleep Powder around and
Sure.
try and get some sleeps before it dies. And so it's like I don't know because like and Murkrow also likes Eviolite, but most of the time you're using Sash, and then the Sash is not available for either of the other Pokemon, and so it's just having three NFEs is I don't like it.
Sure. No, I get that. Like I think we're done with this team.
Yeah,
We've yapped for literally 17 minutes on it. So
I'd be
yeah,
happy.
I mean we both be yapping. Truthfully, I
That's
mean
true. That's
it's
true.
fine. But
I just like talking about stuff
hey,
with you.
man, I just like you.
I like you. I like hanging out with you.
Only last thing I want to say is this MF thinks Venonat is better than Bastiodon. Um,
What?
you
Wait, is
just
that true?
no, you just said that, didn't you?
Actually, yeah, and I stand by it.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's the interaction that I want in the comments. Is Venonat better than Bastiodon? Let me know. That's what I want to know.
It's very important. So
And
make sure you hash it out with all your friends.
yeah, please debate that to the death. Actually, there is nothing more important to debate. All right. Number 8. Yay!
Coming in at the number 8 slot, we have the Pembroke Palafins, with a comp consisting of Skeledirge, Iron Hands, Slowking, Ursaluna, Klefki, Serena, Oricorio Fire Formy, Zoroark, Sliggoo, and Toxapex. Now, the first thing I want to call out here, Toby,
Uh huh.
I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing.
I think I am.
This motherfucker got a ground type?
I know. It's wild.
Unheard of.
It's insane.
um, this holy trick room.
Yeah,
Like,
this is probably the most potent trick room
yeah,
on this list.
yeah. But also,
Yeah,
but like that's it.
but it's number 8
Um,
because
it's number 8 because it's only trick room. If you stop this team from getting trick room up, like it's kind of over.
yeah,
like, like not immediately, because like Iron Hands and Ursaluna can be kind of hard to kill. However, they become much easier to kill if they cannot terastalize,
yep,
which, spoiler alert, they can't. Um, Slowking, I think, is a phenomenal trick room setter. It's impossible to taunt. You run Covert Cloak and you can't get faked out, and it is so hard to kill in one turn, especially if only one of your Pokemon is allowed to attack, courtesy of Fake Out from Iron Hands. I think Skeledirge is one of the best Terra targets on the list. Obviously, it's really good. It's bulky. It gets like unaware, makes it really hard to take down, especially if you're running a lot of bulk, which you can do very easily because of the guaranteed Torch Song boosts. And then obviously, Iron Hands is the best draft Pokemon of all time, as far as I'm concerned. Even though it is brought down significantly by not being able to Terra. Ursaluna is very, very strong. The number of bad Ursaluna matchups that exists is 0. And then like Serena being able to stop opposing, priority, which again is good into trick room teams because it ignores the speed control. Duh. And then Klefki being able to set screens and make these Pokemon really hard to kill is cool. But like I said, there are other ways of stopping Trick Room. Like if someone runs like Imprison Trick Room, good luck.
yep,
If someone roars a Slowking out, which I've seen before, uh-oh. It's it's so top heavy, which I don't think is always a bad thing, but in a league where the strongest Pokemon aren't allowed to Terra, I think it becomes much worse. And so, like, Ursaluna and Iron Hands have a lot of weaknesses. Like
Yeah.
fighting is really bad defensively, and then ground is weak to a lot of common types, and normal being weak to fighting is also not great. And so being able to get rid of those is so important to these Pokemon. And losing the ability to do so makes them much less valuable. Um, it's it is in a very similar spot to the last team, where it does one thing really well, and if it isn't allowed to do that thing, I don't know if it can do anything.
Yeah.
The difference is, I think this Trick Room mode is way better than the last team's Sun mode,
Yeah. I agree.
but it's still just like one thing.
I agree. It is, in my opinion, at the very least, the best, which is an objectively correct opinion, the best Trick Room mode on this list. I don't think there's any debate there. It is definitely the best Trick Room mode. But like you said, the problem is it's only Trick Room. And if you get imprisoned, if Slowking dies in one hit, anything like that, good luck. You've lost your speed control. You have no other options. You're just going to have to click attacks, and that's about it. And you'll likely lose from that standpoint. And my thing is, yes, of course, Iron Hands is the undisputed best Pokemon of Draft League. That is absolutely true. But like you said, Iron Hands and Ursaluna both can't Terra. And now, in terms of Ursaluna, I still think it is rough for it not being able to Terra. But I think Ursaluna is a serviceable Pokemon without Terra.
Yeah.
Iron Hands, in my opinion, in this format, is no better than a B tier Pokemon. Because Iron Hands really, really appreciates Terra. Without Terra Fire, it's gonna get burned all the fucking time. Its output goes in the fucking toilet. Without Terra Grass, it's gonna die to ground types, which, while not super common in this division for some fucking reason, it can still catch you off guard. You're gonna get hit by a lot of different things, because fighting's weak to a lot of different moves that a lot of people have types of that, and honestly, there's a psychic type on every fucking team, I think, and there's a good fairy type on every fucking team. Like, Iron Hands is going to struggle against those a lot. And I think the problem here with, at least in my opinion, and again, this isn't a slight on anybody, like with Burst and Phoenix both, their opinions of Iron Hands here, I think it's skewed by normal formats. I really, truly think you're going to be disappointed in the performance of this Mon in this format. Because it's just not as potent. It's just not as powerful. And I think the problem is that both of the team, like both Burst team and this team, lean on Iron Hands too hard and expect it to do more than it's going to be able to do. And I think that's going to bite you in the ass. The other thing that I have a problem with is that this team is really physically heavy. Like, Skeledirge kind of makes up for it with the snowballing effect of Torch Song. But the problem is you still need a couple turns to get that to happen. The only other, real special attacker here is Zoroark. And I got a problem with Zoroark on this team. Because, A, it's really not even that strong of a special attacker. It does have 120 attack, but it clicks 2 or 3 different moves, and that's about it. It is a Terra target, but that seems like a problem to me because your best Mon that you're going to want to have as an illusion target can't Terra, so you're immediately going to blow your cover right off the bat. Sometimes you only need 1 turn, but other times that read goes out the window instantly because of that. The other thing that I have is, I guess you tried to give yourself a fast Mon in Zoroark. Zoroark has 105 speed. It's not actually technically a fast Mon, in my opinion, and you have no real mode to support that fast Mon anyway. I actually think Zoroark is actively detrimental to this team. I know your notes said you liked it. I genuinely hate it. I think it's horrible here.
My notes did say I liked it because I was like, oh, it's good with is illusioning as some of these Mons.
Yeah,
And the more I look, the more I changed my
I
mind.
don't think there's any real good illusion target here. Like
Like
maybe Slowking.
my brain was like, well, it can take a shadow ball ghost move is what I meant to say
Sure.
for Slowking, I guess. But even resisted hits are going to do a good chunk because the Pokemon is so frail.
Yeah.
And then I was like, or it could take a psychic move for Iron Hands. But what if they just go for a fairy move instead? And then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's like if you want to illusion as Ursaluna, then you're taking a fighting move, and it's like I
Yeah.
don't know. I think we're in trouble.
Zoroark is an actively bad slot here, I feel.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah.
like it gets Icy Wind, doesn't it? Or is that just the Hisuian?
I don't know if it gets Icy Wind or not. I think
It
that's
doesn't matter.
Hisui. Yeah, it doesn't matter
What
at
I
all.
what I meant to say is even if it gets a form of speed control like Icy Wind, it still doesn't matter because every other Pokemon on this team is so
Everything
slow.
else wants Trick Room.
And it's like, and then there the offensive pieces are so strong that they distract you pretty easily from the fact that there are not that many of them.
Yes,
It's like Skeledirge, Iron Hands, Ursaluna, maybe Serena.
kind of.
And I guess, and like you said, Zoroark has a good special attack stat. Like 120 is certainly nothing to sneeze at. Better than Flygon's stat, I can tell you that much. But
You're clicking Dark Pulse.
you're clicking Dark Pulse, and it's hard to give up a slot for Zoroark because it is anti-synergistic with the rest of your team, because if Trick Room goes up, Zoroark is in a very bad spot, and if it doesn't go up, every other Pokemon on your team is in a bad spot. And so it's like, realistically, the only offensive pieces that are going to function on this team are the first three.
Yeah.
And it's and then again, and maybe Serena, but the speed tier is just weird. And speaking of speed tiers, it like obviously it's a good Trick Room mode, but when you look at the speed tiers, if you're going up against someone else's Trick Room mode, they're actually kind of not that great. Like Iron Hands is base what, 50?
Yes.
Yeah, Iron Hands is base 50. I believe Ursaluna is base 50 as well. And then stinking Skeledirge is like 60. 66, yeah. And so it's like if you're going up against another person's Trick Room team, it's actually not that hard to be slower than these Mons.
Yeah.
And I mean, except Slowking, but like Slowking isn't exerting that much pressure to begin with.
Sure.
And so it's like, I don't know. Again, if you get into a position where Trick Room is up and you're going to town, it's gonna put in work.
Yeah.
But like, it's pretty soft to intimidate, which doesn't need the speed advantage to activate. And it's like, and then, you know, Skeledirge is bulky, but it's not like that bulky.
Right.
And then you want to get Klefki on the field to set screens because that really makes this team difficult to take down. But it's like people can run Brick Break pretty easily, and Brick Break into Ursaluna is probably going to do a good chunk of damage, and it's not that hard to go for, especially since it can't Terra. And so it's like, I don't know. It's a good mode, but it has a lot of holes that the rest of the team just doesn't cover at all.
Yeah. And I guess circling back to the first point, if Trick Room doesn't go up, this team struggles a lot. But to be fair to this team, Trick Room's going to go up pretty consistently. I do
Yes.
feel
Yeah.
like Slowking Serena, like that. That is going to ensure Trick Room goes up like 8 or 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But it's that one time out of 10 that your opponent can find the opportunity in that you're gonna you've bricked your team.
Yeah.
And there's no real alternative option other than Trick Room, and that becomes exploitable.
Yeah, and Iron Hands also is like, I'm an Iron Hands user myself. I took that guy to a regional and I did pretty well. Iron Hands is very, very good.
That's brag.
And like Fake Out next to your Trick Room setter, very, very good. But it's just it's very one dimensional, and also for the people who are going to be like, oh, you didn't talk about Oricorio or Sliggoo or Toxapex, get real.
They don't exist.
The grown-ups are talking. We're speaking about actual Pokemon here. Like, let's get our heads in the game. Although, I do happen to know a friend of mine who did some decent work with Sligo recently in a different league, but that doesn't count.
No.
And so that was a coach diff. But like, if Sligo does work, I won't be surprised, but it won't. And so it's like, yeah, I don't know. It feels pretty one dimensional. And so if the opponent is ready for it, I've had my trick room turn stalled out before.
Yeah.
And so it's like the ability to protect in front of this team is big. And so it's just like, I don't know. If it gets itself in an advantageous position, it will do very well. These Pokemon are very strong. But if it doesn't manage to get itself there, or like, it's just, I don't know. It's weird. Again, it's a team that would be a lot higher if it wasn't for the fact that all the other teams are very, very good. Well, a lot of the other teams are very, very good.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it'd be a great team in a regular format.
Yes, oh my god, in a regular format, I'd throw up if I saw this team.
I'd still have problems with it, but it would be much better.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to notice, we are yapping so fucking long on these teams.
I thought a lot about these teams.
We got shit to say, man. I get it.
Exactly.
It's just, the 3-hour video. I don't know who's watching it, but
everybody
better watch it.
They've been begging. This video better have a 100% retention rate.
You know what? You're right. The last thing I want to say is I don't think Klefki's needed here either. I think Slowking and Klefki are kind of doing the same fucking thing, really. I mean, Klefki does some of the utility moves Slowking wants to do better, obviously because of Prankster, but I feel like you didn't need to have both of them. I guess maybe for rounding out your type synergies, but like, honestly, I think you could have used that 34 points on something better. But that's the extent of where I'm going into that. But
yeah, I mean, I think it has some benefits. Like, I think manual weather is good on every team because other people are going to have weather and you can overwrite it, and that's good. I think priority Thunder Wave is another thing it does really well, and I think that's bad on this team because you don't want your opponents to be that slow. And then it can set screens, and it's like, that's good here, but it's only 2 moves, and it's hard to get into position, and screens have very distinct counterplay that is not that hard to get your hands on.
And Slowking can set screens after he gets Trick Room up. It
also true.
Care.
Also true.
So I don't know. I think you could have done something other than Klefki.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna rag on Klefki the same way I'll rag on Zoroark because I see the vision for Klefki. But
yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, that's all I've got for the Pembroke Palafins.
I'm done talking about this team.
All right. Yeah. And also, fuck the Brits. Bye. On to the next.
So true.
Okie dokie. And in number 7, we have the Crystal Falls Cramorants, coached by my lover, Raz Raspberry.
Hello.
My intense, talented lover. And he's got a roster of Weezing Galar, Regigigas, Sneasler, Empoleon, Lando Eye, Fletchinder, Clawitzer, Rabska, Morpeko, and Sunflora. Now, Raz, let me do my ranting here for a second, and then I'll let you defend everything. But I'm gonna say the elephant in the room immediately. Gigas Weezing bad. I know a lot of people were thinking it, so I'm just gonna say it. It's bad. It's not a good mode. It's not consistent because if Weezing goes down, Regigigas is bricked. That's it. There's nothing else to say there. It's not great. However, it did go to finals last season. That was before Terror Threshold was raised. It still might be more consistent in this format than a regular format. And I understand it's a fun, duo to use. So I'm not going to say it's an actively bad duo, but I think the mode could have been better. You could have gotten something better there. But that's it. We're not touching on that anymore. If anybody else wants to trash on Weezing Regigigas, fine. I'm not doing it anymore. There you go. Your obligatory mode is bad talk out of the way. But let's go into the decent things about this team first off.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got really good type cores. I mean, other than like missing a dragon type, which isn't really the most important type to have in the world. I think you have really good type synergy. You've got really good Terra targets. The speed tiers are pretty good. 120, 101, 100 is a pretty good spread. Unburden on Sneasler also really helps with that speed. Like this team does a fast mode really well, and it does do a trick room mode fine. It is functional. Yeah. Like when you look at it, there is trick room. It does work, but you know. Like 59 and 45 being your speed tiers for Clawser and Sunflora, it's fine, but it's not phenomenal. Like it'll work, but it's gonna be outpaced by other dedicated trick room modes.
Yeah.
It's also kind of a entirely special based trick room mode. Rabska, Clawser, Sunflora, none of them want to hit physical moves, so that's kind of a bit of an issue, I would think. I think your lead roles are a bit limited, because you're always gonna want to bring like Guizing Gigas, or you're gonna want to do Guizing Sneasler. You're gonna want to do Rabska next to one of your Trick Room mounts. Empoleon's good for Intimidate Deterrent, though. I like that. Let's see, what else can I wrap on here? I think. No, I'm not going into it again. I keep getting the urge to go into Gigas Wheezing again, and I'm not doing it. I'm done. I'm not doing it. Empoleon is good Intimidate Deterrent, which, you know, is a good thing here because Gigas Sneasler definitely want to avoid Intimidate, and that will help prevent it or deter it from coming in. And if it does come in, Empoleon kills a lot of things. I do think, though, that this team is pretty much entirely dependent on having a speed advantage, and if it doesn't have that, it goes down very quickly. Which does not lean itself well to the mons like Lando I that can't Terra and are honestly pretty vulnerable in this format, because of their double weakness to ice or their abysmal typing of ground flying. It's gonna struggle a lot. I'm not saying it's impossible to use, but I think it's gonna be a very difficult mon to use week to week. And you have really good Terra targets: Weezing, Gigas, Empoleon, Fletchinder, Clawser, Rabska. They're all good. They all have their own uses for Terra, and I think that's a good thing, especially in this format. But I think the tailwind isn't the greatest thing here because Fletchinder is just fake out bait. Morpeko can go faster than other fake out users, but there's not a lot to there's not a lot of good pressure here. I don't know. I think that's, I'm trying to think. I think that's it. I think that's all I have to wrap on. I think it's overall very good. There's just, you know, the glaring weaknesses.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I am gonna go back to Weezing Gigas. I think it's an interesting. I drafted it because I think it's gonna be fun, and I still think it's gonna be fun. One of the things with offensive Regigigas, which I am gonna run, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna rag on it for a second, but like I will be bringing it, is that even though Regigigas has a really high, like staggeringly high attack stat of 160, a lot of the time when you're looking at really strong Pokemon with really strong attacks, it's because they have a lot of multipliers, right? So like when you're looking at like the most notorious example being to me being Dracovish with it only has like 90 attack, but then it gets the Vicious Rend times 2 for going first, plus the Strong Jaw, which I think is 1.5 times, and then usually another 1.5 times from Rain, and another 1.5 times from Stab, and then sometimes a 1.5 times from Choice Band, and all of a sudden, you're getting to really, really high numbers. The problem is, Regigigas doesn't have any of those. And so it's just like a normal type move and then the stab type bonus. And so even though it has a really high attacking stat, it is oftentimes not picking up kills because it will never have the damage multiplier from being super effective because its stab moves are normal type. And so it becomes very reliant on using Terra to get stab on a different attack or a different move. And so the neutralizing gas mode with Regigigas can tend to be underwhelming, even though it feels like it should be very strong in theory. However, Regigigas isn't a one-dimensional Pokemon. It actually has a pretty decent supportive move pool. Like, I just brought again Sebzi. It gets Wide Guard, it gets Knockoff, it gets Thunder Wave, and so it's, and amongst other things, those are just the things that I used this week. And then and then it's so bulky. Like, I can't stress this enough.
It is.
Like 110 across the board is really, really good. And so if you're running like a bulkier set, which I was this last week, then it's really, really hard to remove before slow start goes away. Like, the most notable thing that I've seen in the 1 week that I've used it is I don't know what Sebzi's spread was, but I took a Thunderbolt and it did like 40 damage. And so it's just like, it can be a good, it's kind of like a jack of all trades ish in a sense, except it doesn't excel at any of them. It will 2-hit KO anything if neutralizing gas is active or if slow start has gone away, and it can run a pretty flexible set of like supporting moves along with its really good natural bulk, but it's not gonna like knock your socks off in either of those roles. And so it has a kind of flexibility that I think a lot of people aren't giving it credit for because they think it's completely reliant on wheezing. Offensive sets are 100% absolutely, but it's just, it has more depth than that. And I think that's been demonstrated by the things that it did this last week. Wheezing can be dangerous dangerous to run, I should say, because it's kind of easy to kill. Like, its special defense stat is really bad. And it's hard to offset that because it's like, obviously you can't run Assault Vest because you want to be running stuff like Will-O-Wisp, stuff like Pain Split maybe, and like you need Protect to keep it safe so that Regigigas can do the stuff that it needs to do. But it's also not just neutralizing gas. Like, Misty Surge is good for keeping Regigigas safe from like burns or from sleep. Same for Sneasler. It also activates Unburden with Misty Seed, but it does have a kind of anti-synergy there where Wakeman pointed this out to me, but I think it's really, really relevant. Part of the reason Dire Claw is so crazy is because of that really high chance to inflict a status condition, which is impossible under Misty Terrain.
Yeah.
Also, Sneasler's move pool is kind of limited. Like, it gets Fake Out and it gets double stab moves, and then beyond that, it kind of sucks. And so, like, it's kind of synergistic, the three of them, but also kind of anti-synergistic, because you want neutralizing gas for Regigigas, and you want terrain for Sneasler, and you also kind of want terrain for Regigigas, but also terrain is kind of bad for Sneasler, and it's a weird core. I drafted Weezing because I thought it would be fun, and then I didn't know what to do after that, and I think you can kind of tell. I do think Landorus is really nice next to Fletchender. And like, obviously it is fake out bait. Like, I've criticized this kind of lead a lot. I don't really have any redirection. And so it can be tough to reliably set that kind of speed control. But if it goes up, Landorus puts up numbers, dude. Like, that mon is so strong. And then I think that the Trick Room mode is fine. Obviously, Cloudster is one of the most consistent special water types in the game because of the limited distribution of Scald and being able to do a lot of damage with Water Pulse thanks to Mega Launcher. But like you said, its speed tier is really awkward. It's like 60 or 50. And so it's easy to underspeed from dedicated Trick Room modes, and Tailwind isn't necessarily always going to put it on top of its opponents. And so it's just kind of weird. Rabska, I think, is a good setter. And I think Rabska also gets a lot of value out of Revival Blessing on this team specifically because there are Pokemon that just do well by existing. And so, like, if I do run offensive Regigigas and neutralizing gas and Wheezing goes down, it's not necessarily dead forever because Revival Blessing can bring it back, but it's also kind of inconsistent, right? Because you can just kill Rabska. And then I think Sunflora is underwhelming. I took it because I think it's funny. And I like Sunflora, and I'm a Sunflora believer, but without that 1.5 times boost from solar power, like, there's no sun on this team.
Yeah.
And so when you get rid of the solar power boost and you just look at Sunflora's stats, base 105 special attack is not very good. And you also lose access to Weather Ball, which is really, really good coverage for a grass type like Sunflora. And so it's like, it's fine. I don't think this team makes use of it for those 14 points, but it's whatever. It's one of the lowest pointers on this team. And then I think Morpeko is interesting. I think it's good for positional stuff.
Yes.
Like, Fake Out is obviously good, and then it gets like Aura Wheel to guaranteed boosted speed, and then Parting Shot is also nice for like pivoting and really putting yourself in a good spot. But at the same time, it's another ground weakness, of which this team has
A
four, which is
couple.
not
Yeah.
good. And it admittedly there are two immunities, but like they don't really threaten ground types very much, Landorus and Fletchinder.
Right.
And so it's like it has these synergies, and I think it has a lot of potential for damage output, especially with, like you mentioned, that competitive Empoleon. And then, like, Gigas is base 160, Sneasler is really strong, Landorus is so broken. And then, like, Clydesdale puts up numbers, and Flora isn't. I don't know why I said that. It's not going to put up numbers. I don't have Sun on this team. And so it's like, it has a lot of stuff going on. It has a lot of synergies, but it also just hits a lot of these weird snags that make it just feel kind of strange. And so it's like, I think it's a good team, but I think here it's fine. In my list, I think I actually had it like, I think I had it a little bit lower. It was still pretty close to yours. We agreed on most things,
Yeah.
but it's just like, it's good, but it's weird. And so it's like, I don't know. Even after we both talked about it so much, I don't really know exactly how to feel about this team. I think it's like kind of flexible, but also kind of not. And for the same reasons, both ways, I don't know. At this point, I'm just rambling, and so I'm going to shut up.
So you put yours, I think, below Phoenix's. And I ended up, I think, like, I moved it above Phoenix's because I think your team is just far more flexible. I think there's a lot more you can do with it. You have a lot more options in prep. Your Terra targets are more potent. Even the ones that you don't, even like the ones that can't Terra, which would be Landorus, and Sneasler, they feel a lot more oppressive without Terra than Iron Hands and Ursaluna do. I think this team has a lot more capability to snowball and go off and be a threat than Phoenix's team.
Right.
That would be
Yeah.
my defense of that. There, I do think you deserve number 7 for the record.
Hell yeah.
I don't think you're a number 8 man. You're a number 7, and you take pride in
Let's
that.
fucking go. You're goddamn right.
And yeah, no, like I said, I like the team overall, but there's some inconsistencies, there's some weak points that could be exploited. So I don't think it should go any higher.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it's
I
fine.
will say.
I think it works. I think it's good.
Yep. And I will say, I drafted Weezengigas because I thought it would be fun, and then from there I was lost, but I took some stuff that I also think will be fun, and we're 1 week deep, and I've been having fun. So we take those.
Absolutely. Phenomenal. Okay, well then let's move on to number 6.
Top 6.
Let's go! Top half.
Oh,
You're the top
hell yeah.
50%.
Woo! Rounding out the top half of this division, coming in at number 6, we have the Cerulean Cerulages, coached by Wolf, with a roster consisting of Gyarados, Indeedee Female, Armarouge, Hisuian Decidueye, Darkspun, Drifblim, Registeel, Grafaiai, Palmo, and Arctivax. Now, the first thing I have to say is, naughty Wolf, no ground type again. But it's also missing like a couple of other types, and it brings up a couple of type weaknesses that I don't love. I think this team struggles with dark types is a big one, because like obviously there's this size band mode with Indeedee and Armarouge, and so any team with a dark type being immune to their really powerful psychic moves is a big deal, but also the only resists you have are Hisuian Decidueye, who I frankly am not a believer in, and Darkspun, who the same thing, kind of. I think it has a spot on this team, but I think it doesn't actually really handle those dark types. And then there's also a big electric weakness here. Your only resist is Decidueye, who, again, not a big believer in, and technically Palmo, but that doesn't count. And then the other thing is that, like, I think Grafaiai is bad here. Like, obviously it has the potential to do Unburden stuff, but usually you want to activate Unburden on Drifblim so that it can set Tailwind and go for Strength Sap and Will-O-Wisp and Shadow Ball and all this shit. And if you have that on Grafaiai, I think you get a lot less value out of it. And then if you run Prankster, your opponent is protected by your own Psychic Terrain. And so it's like, I feel like it's not really doing anything. And then it's like, I don't think you really need either of the typings. I don't think it contributes to anything on your team. And so getting something that like can run Assault Vest, frankly, I think would be really, really good. Because the special side on this team is, I don't know. I think strong special attackers are really going to do well here. And which is interesting because the other side is that I think physical attackers into this team are worthless. You have you have Wisp, Strength Sap on Drifblim, which I already mentioned, Intimidate on Gyarados, Well-Baked Body on Darkspun, Iron Defense on Registeel, and it's like, just, good luck.
Yeah.
With all that shit out of the way, though, I think there's some really good stuff going on here. Obviously, Indeedee Armarouge is strong. It's a tried and true mode. It does work, and it will do work here. Being able to set really fast and fake out Immune Tailwind with Drifblim, I think, is really valuable. You have like a Lava Plume mode with Darkspun. And so if you were to run Assault Vest on something like Lava Plume next to AV, Darkspun with Body Press, and like Snarl can be pretty difficult to remove. Gyarados and Registeel are insane Terra targets on this team. Gyarados might be the best Terra target on the list.
I think it is, personally.
Just like so good with Terra, and then obviously Registeel is also very, very good. With Steel being the best defensive typing already, and then being able to like catch someone out like in the late game or the early game, or like finding one type that they don't really have coverage against and then running that, Registeel is going to be really good. And so it's like I think there are weaknesses, but I think they're less prominent than a lot of the other ones we've gone over, and I think the good stuff is really, really good.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Truly, my main problem with this team is Grafai. I honestly, I mean, yes, there's some glaring weaknesses, but I think they are covered by the fact that you have some insane cores and some insane Terra targets. That really the only gripe that I have that I feel is super significant is Grafai. Now, I'm just gonna say it for the record. I fought Wolf week 1. You can run Swords Dance Grafai. Apparently, it does happen. But like, why?
Yeah,
there's no real reason for that. Its main point of existing is to be a prankster user, and I feel like if you're wanting to unoffensive Mon around the 31 point range, you could have gotten something a lot better than Grafai. And I just think 9 times out of 10 you're not going to want to use Grafai's main gimmick because of Indeedee being on the field. So that's literally it. Like, just to mimic what you said, yeah, I don't think Grafai is very good here. I'd like to see that traded for something else.
Yeah.
And yeah, like dark types are threatening here, but I think the fact that he's got really good body press users in Registeel and Darkspun, I think that offsets the issue a little bit. And Darkspun being able to have well-baked body procced by Lava Plume on Armorogue also really helps it here. And I again, before week 1, I would have said Arctibax isn't a real Pokemon, but I saw that thing do a lot of speed control and a lot of freeze dries and a lot. So, like, it honestly does have some usage case, I suppose.
Yeah.
The only thing for me, I keep saying the only thing for me, but like the other thing for me is I feel like Registeel and Gyarados are gonna hog Terra pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
Like Darkspun, Decidueye, Grafai, everything else just isn't really gonna. You can't really justify terroring that over Gyarados or Registeel just because of how fucking strong Gyarados is with Terra in this format, just because of how insanely oppressive Registeel can be with Terra. Like, you're never really gonna want to do anything else Terra-wise. And that becomes a little bit one-note. And it's not that you can't Terra anything else, it's more that, like, why would you, I guess?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, the obvious modes here, they're just too strong. You know, I don't feel like you can rank it any lower because of A, how strong they are, and B, just kind of how consistent they are. Like, Unburdened Tailwind on Drifblim is ridiculous. Like, that's it's really hard to beat the fast mode on this team.
There are a couple other things that I kind of have qualms with. Namely, the really offensive pieces here are kind of limited. Like, I think I would want to see Grafaia get traded for something that's a more consistent offensive threat, because it's like, yeah, you can run Swords Dance if you want to, but
why?
Why? And with 31 points, you can definitely get something that you could get a little more value out of, because aside from that, it's like Gyarados is a really strong attacker and Armorage is a really strong attacker, but it's like Decidueye's attack is middling, Indeedee is a more defensive Pokemon, Darkspun needs a lot of support before it can start really threatening damage, Drifblim is usually like more of a bulky thing, and you can run offensive sets, but again, that special attack stat is kind of, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Right.
And Registeel is mostly threatening because it doesn't die.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you can Iron Defense Body Press, and that's going to be threatening, but again, it takes some time to get going. And if you're hitting it on the special side, then it's like, or if you're a ghost type, then there are some things, excuse me, that it can struggle to exert pressure on, which is to say, fighting resists.
Yeah.
And so it's like in terms of big offensive pieces, you kind of only have two.
You're
And
right.
so, like you said, the modes that are here are extremely potent, and I think the team might struggle to do a lot of damage against opponents that are like positioning well because your pieces are um, so limited. And so I think if you traded Grafai for something that can exert more pressure than Grafai,
Yeah.
then I think the team ends up in a really good position because I think Grafai is like horrible. And yeah, Plummo and Arctibax can do stuff, I guess. But again,
Sometimes.
I'm really looking for like consistency here, and that they feel very matchup dependent.
Yeah. Hell,
And
I'll even
yeah,
do you one better. Like, looking at the tier list around the 31, 30, 29 slot, there are so many physical attackers you can take that would do really well
yeah,
for you here. Like, Executor A looks great here.
hmm
Like,
oh
Braviary
yeah,
honestly looks great here.
hmm
Um, Hell, honestly, if you drafted a Alolan Muck, I'd even say that's a better idea than Grafai.
yeah.
Um,
Toby, are there any ground types around that point range?
There's a Torterra. I see a Torterra.
Hmm.
Let's see what else we've got here. No, just Torterra.
Okay. Then okay, never mind. Maybe don't take Tortilla.
Maybe
But
not
like there are
Torterra.
other options around that point range, you know?
Yeah, but
It's like
there's plenty of other things you can trade Grafai for, and I think your team becomes maybe
a
two
lot
spots
better.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. And because like the way I'm looking at it right now, Gyarados, Indeedee, Armarouge, Driftblim, Registeel, and then one of either Darkspun or Decidueye. I just don't see any situation where I'm bringing anything other than those six Pokemon.
Yeah, so trading Grafai would give you the option of, A, having another option to bring,
Yeah.
and B, making it harder for your opponent in prep to prep for something.
Right. And that's the big thing, is that it's like, that's a good six, but it's the only six. And so it's like, your opponent doesn't have to worry about your entire roster. They have to worry about the six that you're going to bring, and then you bring those six, and they're ready to go.
Right, and I mean, you could even trade, like, Palmo or Arctibax down for, like, a lower pointer and give yourself some extra flex points to go a bit higher, too, if you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Hariyama's there, too. That'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Iron Treads is kind of around in that area. I mean, it's Iron Treads, but it would definitely be better
That's
than
true.
Grafai.
Yeah. You get a ground type.
Gastrodon's right there. I mean, like, there's options. Like, you could definitely flex there. Literally,
Yeah.
every gripe I have comes back to Grafai.
Yeah. Grafai is bad here.
Fuck that thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, it's good, but I think those things kind of definitely drag it down.
Hold it
for
back
me.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it immediately moves up if you just got rid of Grafai. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Like,
Even if you got like a good offensive like assault vest user, you're going to town. You know.
other gripe I have isn't about the team, but the logo. Why the fuck don't you have a logo that doesn't have a white background?
True.
It pisses me off, actually. Like, it actively makes me upset that I had to put the white background logo on this beautiful, like, dark and, like, nice and soothing colored backgrounded PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It's actually offsetting my vibes, and I'm really upset about it. So, Wolf,
Yeah.
you need to take care of that.
You ruined everything.
Yeah, God fucking damn it, you ruined the professionalism of this presentation. Nothing else
fault.
before that happened.
Yep. Exactly.
God damn it. Anyway, I feel like that's all I have to ramble about on
Yeah,
Wolf's team.
I agree.
There's just less for me to pick apart. It's pretty. What you see is what you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, on to number 5. Yay!
Coming in at number 5, our first top 5 slot goes to the Brooklyn Big Welds, coached by, honestly, probably the coolest, chillest, best guy in the entire division. Thank you. Sorry, I just got dinner. My best friend and my lover and my other things that aren't YouTube appropriate.
Yeah, we can't talk
Toby,
about that.
yeah, we can't talk about this here. Coached by Toby, looking at Brute Bonnet, Ninetales, Walking Wake, Screamtail, Gotharita, Mamoswine, Caparaja, Jolteon, Rufflet, and Deerling. Now, the first thing I'll point out is the first thing I always point out. This team has a ground type on it. Big deal. Very important. Ground is an important type, guys. Like, that's a different tangent. Just draft a ground type. And whatever. And if you have questions on why I keep bringing it up, just fucking DM me or ping me in don't ping me in general. Actually, DM me and we'll fucking talk about it. Anyway, this is a really, really good Sun mode, obviously. Like, right off the bat, the first thing you notice about this team, Sun. Bang. Ninetales, Brute Bonnet, Walking Wake, Screamtail. And obviously, it's a really good mode for reasons that I really don't think that I have to explain. Brute Bonnet is a top 3 Terra target on the tier list. Like, it's really, really good. Its typing is really its only weakness, and so being able to get rid of that is very, very strong. And it's not contesting with things like Walking Wake or Screamtail, which in a normal format would be targets that you would justify using it on more. It's also really a really good core defensively. Like, you have fire, water, grass, and fairy, and dragon, and dark, all within the same 4 Pokemon. And so, like, defensively, it's really good. Offensively, it's really good. Fire, water, grass is a notoriously good core. Having a fairy type and a dragon type with each other is also really good. You have an ice resist with Ninetales to help with Brute Bonnet and with like freeze dries that would go into Walking Wake. Obviously you have a dragon immunity, etc. etc. It's just really, really good. And I don't think I have to talk about it anymore because if you look at it with your eyes and use your brain, I think you got it. Um it's also really good with like a physical special like rolls kind of thing because it's like Walking Wake is really strong, especially Brute Bonnet is really strong physically. Ninetales can do a whole bunch of stuff. It can do like Will-O-Wisp support. I think it gets Snarl kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. It can do like offensive sun boosted fire type stuff. And then Screamtail is one of the best support pieces in the game, especially when its speed is boosted with photosynthesis. So this core is doing a ton. And then you get outside of it, and there's still a lot of really good stuff going on here, where it's like, because the speed tiers are so good, a lot of people will be tempted to bring Trick Room. And I do think there's a bit of a like softness to Trick Room, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen because like Caparaja is really good. It's a good Trick Room deterrent, I should say. It's not necessarily as bulky as you would think looking at its stats, but it's still respectable, you know. And then like having an offensive steel type, especially with sheer force, like it can really output a ton of damage. And so Trick Room can be not the easiest thing to threaten when Caparaja is around, and like obviously dedicated modes can do well, but it gives you a piece in that kind of matchup, and Mamoswine can contribute to that depending on the matchup. Speaking of Mamoswine, really, really good here. I obviously ground types are good. It's a really good offensive piece. Thick Fat is naturally a really good ability, but especially with Fire Up, or what? With
With Sun
Sun
Up.
Up, boosting fire moves that would usually do very easily Oko Mamoswine. Being able to reduce that incoming damage with Thick Fat or with like Assault Vest is really nice, and it can Terra, which is also phenomenal because Ground and Ice is so good offensively, and so being able to pick a really good defensive type when the time comes is like fantastic for Mamoswine, which I think is again another one of the better Terra targets on this list. And then I also really like Jolteon here. Base 130 speed is really, really valuable because a lot of the faster Pokemon on this team are fast because of Sun, right? Where Screamtail is like 116, I think, and then Brute Bonnet can never boost its speed, but that's fine. And then like speed boosting Walking Wake potentially. And if you shut down the Sun, then those aren't the hardest speed tiers to outrun. But base 130, on the other hand, definitely is. And so it forces your opponents to invest more into speed, which makes it much easier to kill them with your really, really strong Pokemon, which again, I don't really have to go on through like a rundown for. You can see it with your eyes. Um Rufflet and Deerling are one pointers, and with a top core of what it is, I think taking two one pointers is fine. And also, if you really need Rufflet to do stuff, like desperately need flying coverage, I guess, like hustle boosted stuff, it can put up numbers. It just like needs support. It's one of the only one pointers that can do something if it needs to. And so that's kind of impressive in and of itself. Um, However, there are some other things that I think keep this team from being number one. Obviously, it's top five, but like, I think that having three Paradox Pokemon can be a little like it can just be a little strange sometimes with items. Obviously, in a perfect world, you want photosynthesis to be activated by sun, but a lot of people are going to try and deny you the weather advantage. And so when the weather goes away, you want something to have booster energy so you can keep that boost. And with three Pokemon that all want their ability to be activated, I feel like it could go a lot of different ways. And so it's like figuring out where you're going to put your booster energy is strange. I also don't like Gothorita. I know that we talked about this, and I know that it's for a specific reason. I still don't like it. I think it's really easy to kill. I think it feels like a dead slot on the field constantly. It gets fake out and then it sits there and it keeps your opponent from switching, but like who fucking cares? It's basically a 2v1 at that point. And so it's like I'm not a Gothorita believer. I understand why it's here, and I also think you should trade it for something else. I don't think it's worth 24 points. There are also like a few type weaknesses here that I'm seeing. Like namely, I think the biggest one is fighting. Obviously, Screamtail is a really good resist. But having your Psychic and Fairy typings both on the same Pokemon means that your resists are funneled into one thing. And so it's like Brute Bonnet is weak to it, and Mamoswine is weak to it, and Caparaja is weak to it. And then your resists are Screamtail, and then technically Gothorita, which again, I don't like personally. And even then, it's like your resists are not typically very offensive, and so if a fighting type hits the field, it still can be difficult to threaten to KO them, even if you are resisting their attacks. And then is and then I'm going over my notes just to make sure I didn't miss anything, because I don't want to interrupt you when you start talking. But I think that's everything I meant to say. Because I talked about how insane the targets are. Yeah, that was everything I had to say. And it's your team, and it's also your turn. I'm done. I'm done yapping now.
I mean, I think you've pretty much dissected it about as accurately as anybody could. I don't really know what else to say other than here comes the fucking sun. When sun is up, this team is ridiculously hard to take care of. In terms of the requirements of sun for photosynthesis, I don't think it's as bad as it might look. Just because Brute Bonnet in and of itself doesn't really need sun to operate very well. It doesn't need booster energy to operate very well. I ran it without booster energy and without sun on the field all the time in week 1. It felt fine. I had it for an entire GLDL season where I didn't even use sun. I had a rain mode around it and it did perfectly fine. I don't think Brute Bonnet is going to really struggle at all there. Walking Wake is a fair enough one there. I do think it does actively appreciate having sun, and without it, it is significantly worse, especially because it can't Terra, so it doesn't have that flexibility option. So I agree with you there. Gothorita is not getting fucking traded. It is
So bad.
It is not. It is I don't understand your hate for it here, because the fucking Perish Trap mode is extremely potent. And yeah, maybe it is a 2v1 on the field at that point, but I'm not actively trying to get damage off while I have Perish Trap up, which is the entire fucking point. Gothorita is not easily killed because of Eviolite, and if you're spending a turn hitting knockoff into the Eviolite still factors in to that damage calc anyway, so I'm still getting at least 2 turns from the knockoff and then the protect anyway out of my 3 turns of Perish Trap. And at that point, I'm forcing switches, which is easy enough to read into. So, no, Gothorita is not getting traded, and no, it's not bad. You're wrong.
I think it's bad and you were wrong.
Hey, guess what? You said you weren't gonna talk.
You're right. Sorry, I'll shut up.
So what the fuck are you doing? Huh?
I'm sorry.
Huh?
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna spank you later.
Oh, wrong? Sorry, I'm eating a grilled cheese.
Eating grilled cheese and thinking about me spanking you. That's the life.
Yes, sir. That is the life.
Anyway. No, I don't think the dependency on Sun is as bad as it might look. I do agree there is definitely a reliance on Sun. I do think without Sun it is going to become a bit weaker of a team overall, but I think because of the Perish Trap mode, which is potent enough, and no, I'm not getting rid of Gothorita, and the things like Mamoswine and Jolteon outside of Sun, I think I'll be fine. I don't think I will automatically lose without Sun up, just because I do have options of things outside of Sun, and I think most of the time Screamtail is going to be the booster energy target anyway. So I don't think that there's going to be any significant detrimental to my season run problems there. I do agree that like kind of the speed control is a little sus outside of Jolteon, which is kind of why I got Jolteon, because it was kind of the only thing I could get at that point that would help keep everything kind of running in terms of speed control. And I mean, I needed an electric type anyway, so it was fine. And 130 speed is really good. So like Jolteon, no notes there, but yeah, it is kind of the only thing keeping speed control going outside of like booster speed Screamtail with like Thunder Wave and shit like that. But yeah, no, that's it. Rufflet might be real at one point. Deerling does not exist. It's not even on my screen right now, actually. Truly. I actually think I've got pretty decent bulk all around as well. Insane offense. I mean, no, that's it. I don't have anything else to defend. Basically, the only thing I have to defend is no, I don't think Gothorita is actually that bad. I think you're just a fucking hater. And I don't think the reliance on Sun is that bad. It did work in week 1. Did you not even watch my week 1?
I've been busy becoming homeless.
Understood. So, in other words, you have no information to base the Gothorita bad intel on.
I won a season with Gothorita, by the way, and that thing felt useless every time I brought it.
Well, then, skill issue, but...
Wrong. Yeah. I will say, though, because we're not going to agree on this, and so I'm changing the subject. Nope. There have been teams lower where we were like, oh, this is really reliant on this one mode, and so it's getting ranked really low. The reason that this is higher, even if for people who feel like it's reliant on Sun, is because, like you said, it operates perfectly fine outside of Sun. It's like, instead of Sun being the foundation for making the team operate, it's like, it's just a really nice thing to add on top. And if it doesn't go up, it's fine. And if it does go up, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not going to ramble about my own team any longer because I don't have that much of an ego, but...
Real.
Sebsy might. Anyway, on to number 4! Yay!
Number 4, hooray!
And coming in at number 4, we have the Santaloon Storms, coached by Ted. And we've got a roster of Okidogi, Volbeat, Fluttermane, Gouging Fire, Ambipom, Ampharos, Swampert, Serperior, Skarmory, and Zorua. So, of the cores, the type cores, synergy-wise on this team. The only thing that you're really missing is Psychic, which doesn't feel that bad. That seems fine to me. I don't really think Skarmory is a real flying type or a real steel type in general, but it's good enough. Zoro is kind of similar here. I don't really think it's real enough to count as your dark type on a core here, but Illusion does help a little bit here. And you actually, unlike the Zoroark team, you have good Illusion targets here that can utilize Terra, and that honestly could be beneficial to burn a turn with an Illusion on the field anyway. So I think that's Illusion is better used here, and it's ironic because it's the worst Illusion user. But anyway, so I also think that the speed tiers here are fucking great. You've got a 135, a 115, a 113, a 91. You've got booster speed that you can tech in there as well. So the fast end is phenomenal. No notes about that. It's going to be really, really hard to outpace this team, especially with Volbeat being able to give that Prankster Tailwind up. Unlike Radial's team in the Talonflame division, Volbeat just kind of feels like an accessory here. Whereas with Radial's team, Volbeat was the only reason that team was going to function. With this team, it actually feels like Volbeat is almost secondary in some ways, but also like just it's a phenomenal secondary mon to have here as well. Like it's just a great option to incorporate with everything else that you've got going on here. So so big ups for Volbeat there. I do think your bottom end is a little rough just because you bottom out at 55 speed with Ampharos, I think. So you might be a little bit susceptible in Trick Room. I don't think that's necessarily the worst, though, because this team is very, very good at going fast and hitting hard. So you might not even be in Trick Room a lot of the times if you can, get those quick knockouts. So maybe that's not a huge deal, but it's still there for sure. Yeah. I do think, going back to Volbeat, like, I'm a big fan of the Prankster bugs. I love them. They're great. I think it's phenomenal here. I think you've got great options. You've got Prankster Tailwind, Prankster Taunt, Encore, Tail Glow, Baton Pass bullshit. I love it here. I love Volbeat.
Even Struggle Bug, I think it's really, really nice.
Struggle Bug is great too, honestly too. I don't disagree. I think Okie Dokie is pretty good too, because it's pretty good. Intimidates turrets. You've got a pretty even physical special split, which is really, really nice. It's just so flexible. Like there's just a lot of good flexibility here. I see like 6 or 7 different possible lead combinations that you can do here, and it's just great because it's going to be really hard to figure out what's being led here, and that's going to be really hard in team preview. And there's just so many things you can do here. I can't even process it in my brain. I'm looking at it down the list, and I'm like, oh my god, this goes with this goes with this. You've got Fake Out, you've got good speed control, you've got phenomenal. Oh, it's just good. It's just very good.
Volbeat get Sunny Day?
I think so.
Phenomenal.
I believe so.
And like, yeah, and to double back real quick to the illusion thing, which I think is kind of minor.
Yeah.
Like I think Okie Dokie is a really good illusion target because it's like, it's not weak to fairy. It has a 4 times weakness to something Zora was immune to, and I think that's really valuable. And then like, very similar with Fluttermane, its most exploitable weakness is Ghost, which Zora also resists, and then it just I think that's good. More importantly, base 115 on your Fake Out user, really solid. It will let you contest with almost any other Fake Out user in the game, and being able to fake out their Fake Out so that your partner Pokemon can do what it wants to do, really, really useful. Obviously, Gouging Fire, we've seen, even in normal VGC, its ability to flex between dealing a ton of damage with, like, Heat Crash and, like, Dragon moves to being able to support with, like, Howl to boost attack stat for its partners and Breaking Swipe to reduce the opponent's attack stat, which I think pairs very well with Struggle Bug from Volbeat. Okidoki, obviously, like I've seen Guard Dog run with Adrenaline Orb, which I think is really potent.
Ooh.
Obviously, bulk up sets are really good since you can't reduce its attack stat with Intimidate. Volbeat, obviously, insanely flexible. Same with Fluttermane. Like you can run booster speed with Icy Wind and Taunt, or you can run like Specs, Terra Fairy, Offensive. Um, I think a lot of the other Pokemon are kind of one-dimensional, but not necessarily in a bad way. They have one thing that they do and they're really good at it. Um, and I will say, I think Serperior, I like there are other Terra targets that we'll talk about in a little bit, but I think Serperior is a really interesting target where it's like obviously what it wants to do is spam Leaf Storm, but it can run like Terra Fire to cover some of its weaknesses and give it better offensive pressure. I think Stellar Terra is an interesting concept on this Pokemon. And so like I think that's going to be really interesting. There are just a lot of pieces that do a lot of stuff that I think is really really cool in this team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The damage mitigation is great here too. Struggle Bug and Light Screen from Volbeat, it's gonna be really fucking good. I think that the Snarl from Okidoki is great. You got Burns from Gouging Fire. I mean, even Ambipom has a little bit of damage mitigation to its name because I think it gets Chilling Water.
Yes.
So you've got a lot of good options to make this actually pretty respectable bulk on your team become even better. And I think that's just really nice to see. Again, I glaze Volbeat so fucking much, but like, it's just so good here. It's got good fucking weather pivoting. It's got Tailwind. It's got Taunt. It's got damage mitigation. It's got damage boosting for Baton Pass bullshit. Phenomenal. Ambipom is really good fake out here. Specifically because it's 115 speed fake out, and I think that's top end of speed for fake out users, so it's going to outpace a lot of other fake out users. It does have other ways of supporting the rest of this team too. It's got Taunt, it's got Helping Hand, Thunder Wave, Knock Off, and it's got like we said, Chilling Water, and it's got Switcheroo as well. And you can also do some Technician bullshit with it. I really am actually a fan of the Technician bullshit you can do with this. You can do some like loading dice sets, some Silk Scarf sets. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do there for sure. Generally, I'm actually not very high on Ampharos as a Pokemon, but here, it actually doesn't feel that bad. Actually seems okay. I mean, the speed is a little wonky, but it does have good special attack, and it's got pretty decent bulk. The electric typing adds to the typing synergy here. I do think this is a pretty good example of a really mid Pokemon being made really good because it was drafted on a good team.
Yeah. It also gets screens, which
does it
again,
really?
Yeah. And so again, a lot of other ways on this team to make some of the squishier Pokemon like Fluttermane really, really a lot harder to kill than they would be normally, and then stuff like Okidoki and Gouging Fire, which are already bulky, really, really difficult to remove. Especially considering Okidoki can Terra out of its 4 times weakness to Psychic.
Yeah, I agree with that. Serperior, though, I do like it here. I really do. Serperior, just in general, I'm actually a pretty big fan of, especially in lower tier or lower power formats like this. But it does lack some pretty key redirection here, I think. It does. I think Serperior really appreciates redirection in order to, get a couple turns where it can get its contrary boosts off. But I do think again, going back to Volbeat, I do think the priority Tailwind, and I think the support coming in from Volbeat and from Ambipom, it kind of helps mitigate that a little bit. It's just
Yeah,
it's a small gripe for me, but I do think it might be a bit of a hiccup in some weeks. But generally, Superior being a really good Terra target also helps that here too. So I mean, maybe it's not the biggest issue, but that's just one thing.
yeah. I don't know. I think it's really good.
Yeah,
Um, like to the point where I'm I'm looking at it and I'm like, why didn't this get placed higher? And then I'm remembering the teams that are above
yeah.
it, and
There's a
I'm like,
couple way
right,
better ones. Yeah,
yeah, this team is just. I like it a lot. I
Mhm.
think it's really, really good, and like, it just, it's a really, I don't fucking know what to say, dude. I feel like this team has everything mostly.
It is. It's just really good. Chef's kiss, Ted. Truly.
Well done, well
Very,
drafted.
very, very well done. Normally we sit here and yap for fucking ever, but I think when we get to these top ends, it's more just like I don't really have very many notes, so
Yeah, it's just like this team is good, and it's good because I have eyes, and then
yeah.
we move on.
Yeah. I'll give you a kiss on the forehead, a pat on the
Mhm.
ass, and we're gonna move on. All right, number 3, top 3, baby. Oh my god.
Kicking off our top three slots, we have the Great Lakes Aces, piloted by Samuel Man Wakeman VGC. The comp consists of Garganackle, Whimsicott, Bisharp, Typhlosion Hisui, Araquanid, Weirdeer, Sandy Shocks, Hitmontop, Ariados, and Meowth. And this team, the the first thing that I said about this team was that it confuses me. I said it in my notes. I just said it to Toby a second ago, and I'm saying it again right now. This team hurts my head. But like the more that I look at it, the more I think that that's good because it's like there are so many pieces on this team where it's like it's you can do anything. Like there are so many teams that have specific modes where you look at them and you say, okay, I can be ready for these leads with these Pokemon. And this team does not do that. I'm like, I got no clue. I'm lost. And I think that's really beneficial because it's like it's hard to figure out what to be ready for, and there are a lot of different things that it could be. Like if you lead like Whimsicott Typhlosion, you're threatening a ton of damage, and it's like it can be really like just taking eruptions under Tailwind is really really difficult to deal with if you can't outspeed it. And then you also have like Araquanid and Garganackle and Eviolite Bisharp, which are all very, very bulky, especially considering Bisharp can Terra. We saw last season. It's a really fantastic Terra target. And so like all of these Pokemon being so bulky and Araquanid and Bisharp threatening like really significant amounts of damage and Garganackle being borderline impossible to remove and just like really chipping away at your team in a way that's difficult to manage is like that hurts. And then making everything even extra bulky, double intimidate on this team with Weirdeer and Hitmontop. Weirdeer is a really solid trick room setter if you want it to be. Hitmontop gets fake out, it gets wide guard, it gets feint if you want to run like a supportive set. It gets offensive moves like close combat, obviously, and then like triple axle and other various offensive moves. And so it brings a lot of flexibility in that sense. Sandy Shocks also is very flexible. Obviously, it can't Terra, but like it can run booster speed and do like electro web stuff, or it can run like purely offensive. And it's just like. And the type synergy is also really good. Like there's a little bit of a just a little soft to electric, I guess. but like Whimsicott resists and Sandy Shocks is immune, and then again you have a really really good list of Terra targets that you can use to get around that if your opponent has a particularly threatening electric type, and even then it's like that's still pretty minor. And so it's like it's just it looking at it, it feels all over the place. And then when I think about how they all work together, it's so flexible, and a lot of the pieces that do specific things feel really pretty difficult to stop because of either their other teammates or just some intrinsic characteristic that they have. And it's like I just it just seems like a nightmare to prep for,
Right.
because so many things do so many things, and it's like what's he gonna lead, what sets is he gonna bring, like how is he gonna, what's he gonna, I just don't know.
Yeah, there's just so much happening at once on this team, and it really, it actually is super beneficial for the comp itself, because it's literally just kind of like they can do anything. This team can do anything at once, and it's extremely hard to pin down what it wants to do from week to week necessarily, because there's like probably going to be 2 or 3 different good modes to bring into one team any given week, because you've gotten, there's so many broad expressions of roles across this entire comp, and
Hmm.
it's hard to pin down. It's hard to identify specifically what it wants to do, and that's really good here, I feel. And honestly, I think that's kind of impressive and shows how well drafted this team was, because in general, I feel like if you don't know what a team wants to do, it's actively kind of bad.
Hmm.
But this team just kind of exudes like, fucking guess what I'm gonna do. Make a prediction.
Yeah.
Make a prediction. If you make it wrong, you automatically lose. You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like honestly, most of the time, this team's gonna win on sheer bulk alone.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, Eviolite Bisharp is great. Araquanid is super bulky.
Yeah.
Garganical is ridiculous.
Hmm.
And you've also got insane output in Sandy Shocks and Typhlosion. You've got insane speed control with Whimsicott, and Sticky Webs, and a String Shot from Araquanid, and E-Web from Sandy Shocks. Good fake out and Hitmontop. Trick Room and Weird Ear. Weird Ear is a pretty consistent Trick Room setter, especially in this format. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a bunch of really fucking good tools. It kind of looks like it turned into Whimsicott plus good stuff, and I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the only gripes I will say is that if you simplify, then you kind of get to a point, like, if you just go, okay, what kind of speed control is best into my team, then you can kind of, like, boil it down to something much more simple that feels much more manageable. Like, if you look at the fast mode, you're looking at primarily you're looking at Whimsicott and Typhlosion and Sandy Shocks, and all of those Pokemon are special. And then you look at the slow mode, and it's Garganacl and Bisharp and Araquanid and Weird Ear and maybe Hitmontop, and all of those Pokemon are physical. And so it's like, even though they can still do a lot of stuff, and just like investing into one kind of defense based on what kind of speed control you think will be active, it only really gets you so far. But it's still something that kind of like exists. And so when you think about it that way, it's like there's kind of like a little bit of something that might be exploitable there. But again, like you said, if you got that call wrong, you're cooked.
yeah.
And even then, it's like defensive investment can only get you so far when you're going up against like Specs Eruption from Typhlosion, or Booster Special Attack from Sandy Shocks, or like +1 anything on Bisharp, or Water Bubble Liquidation on Araquanid. And Araquanid can even run special. It often doesn't because its special water coverage isn't super consistent, but like it's an option. And so it's like it feels like a little something where I'm like, that kind of like puts me off. But however, it's still a pretty minor thing.
Yeah. And it just comes down to, if you make the wrong call, you kind of lose. Like,
Yeah.
Like this team forces you to guess, and if you guess wrong, then it's pretty bad for you.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I didn't expect Wakeman to draft something like that. I normally expect
Yeah,
like
real.
just pure hyper offense from him, but this is this is cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I've seen a lot of other teams where I look at them and I go, I don't really have like I don't have a label to put on this. Like I can't figure out an identity for this team or what it wants to do, and a lot of the time it's detrimental. But here it's just like I'm like, okay, it has no identity. How do you exploit that? And I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't even know what else to say about it. I feel like we
Me
just move
neither.
on. It's
Yeah.
it's good. There's nothing else I can say. 2 thumbs up.
Hmm.
Post editing, Toby put the gif of the kid with the thumbs up right there.
Yep.
And the chef's kiss. And the gif of that 3-way kid. Anyway, moving on. Number 2.
We're going top 2. Let's go.
And coming in at number 2, we have the San Diego Sandacondas, coached by Joey. And we have a roster of Iron Moth, Illumise, Meowscarada, Inteleon, Espathra, Sentret, Hatterene, Rhyperior, Scrafty, and Duskull. Truthfully, for me, I only have one real criticism, and that there's some missing types here that create some weird synergy type wise. You don't really have any good flying stab, which could come back to bite you, maybe. And I feel like steel is an extremely important type to have on a team. Specifically for the defensive synergy, because it resists fucking everything under the sun. It's a good switch in, and also a lot of steel types are really good offensively as well. So I think that's a pretty important type to have. And it also kind of helps make fairies a lot less oppressive into you as well. It would help protect with Scrafty and stuff like that. But truthfully, the lack of types is kind of where I stop having any gripes with this team, because
Yep.
like genuinely, honestly, that's the only thing I could find. Like I read Raz's notes, I looked at this, I think I stared at this team for probably 10 to 15 minutes to try to find something that was wrong with it other than that, and I just couldn't.
It's just
It's just very, very good. The fast mode is this might be the
Unreal.
fastest mode. This might be the fastest mode in the div.
This is actually bananas.
It's actually ridiculous. So booster speed moth, booster speed iron moth, speed boost to Spathra. This team kind of goes fast and doesn't really care about your speed control after a certain extent either.
Yeah, seriously.
Especially with priority Tailwind and Illumise. I think your fire, water, grass core is ridiculous.
It's
Iron Moth, Meowscarada, and Teleon. The sheer output actually from that core is it's mind-boggling.
Hurts my head.
It's genuinely
mind-boggling is a great way of putting it.
It is genuinely mind-boggling. The Iron Moth is probably, I would say, probably top 3, maybe top 5 Terra targets on the list. So
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
in general is phenomenal to have as your fire type. Meowscarada is very, very oppressive. I feel like it's kind of fallen to the wayside in a lot of regular formats, but I think here is the chance to show that it still is very, very strong, especially with a move like Flower Trick that always fucking crits. Inteleon is an insanely good fast water type. It has speed control as well, and like Icy Wind, so you can keep your fast mons going even faster on the field as well. It's like with Tailwind support from Illumise, this Fire Water Grass core feels borderline unstoppable in terms
seriously.
of like competing with it speed wise and even output wise.
You just can't do it, especially because like obviously you have Prankster Tailwind, and then like Snipe Shot is great because it's like, oh, you have redirection? Let me tell you something. We do not care. And it's like, and then your super super fast mode is like It leans pretty specially, but Meowscarada is so strong on the physical side that like that kind of damage output is something you can't ignore. But also, who fucking cares? Because a Spathra gets a speed boost, and then you go, here's a Lumina Crash, hold this -2 special defense, and then die. And it's like, like what do you do? I don't fucking know. I don't. It's just it. I. I just wow.
Yeah,
Like
no, it does. It shuts your brain down looking at it, doesn't
it
it?
does. It
Like,
does. It really does.
holy
Like,
shit.
oh, brother.
I mean, like, and the thing about it is that the fast mode is super, super fucking good. And normally on teams like this, you would expect one way or the other to be just better. Like, your fast mode would be better, the TR mode would be better. The TR mode is really good, too. Like,
Really good.
it's very well developed. Rhyperior is, in my opinion, I mean, it's not like the top best Terra target on the list, but it's a very, very good Terra target.
Yeah,
It's an
seriously.
insanely good Trick Room sweeper. Lightning Rod, for what it's worth, is good there for your electric immunity and redirection. Scrafty is so underrated as a Pokemon, even in regular formats, in my opinion. It's a slow fake out user, which means you can put it next to Hatterene, get fake out off, and then when Trick Room goes up, Scrafty can still do things in Trick Room, unlike something like Salazzle could.
Right.
And that to me is extremely valuable. Like, you don't just have a super strong and oppressive fast mode that's extremely well supported all the way through, but you have a Trick Room mode that, well, if Tailwind doesn't work out for you, you can say, oh, we want to go slow? We can go slow. I don't care. I'm absolutely fine with that.
Yeah. Because, like, Hatterene is almost impossible to underspeed. Rhyperior with, like, Solid Rock and Assault Vest, which is a set that I ran a lot when I had Rhyperior and SCBA, very, very difficult to take down. Scrafty obviously makes things a lot easier thanks to Intimidate. Obviously, Fake Out is good. And then, like, it has pretty decent damage output, especially since it can Terra out of its, frankly, very bad typing. And if you even get to use your Terra on it, because again, Rhyperior and Iron Moth are so good with it. And then it gets other stuff, like it gets Knockoff, which is good. It gets Poison type moves to hit the fairies that would usually threaten it. Very difficult to underspeed under Trick Room, and also, I think Sentra is real on this team. And I think it's really good on this
Genuinely, I
team.
don't disagree.
It's like is it Centrit? Yeah, but it's like it's the cheapest redirection available, and so getting that kind of value without spending very many points is really good. But also, a big issue that I have with a lot of Trick Room modes is like in order to have a Trick Room mode, you have to set Trick Room, and a lot of the Trick Room setters do this by being very bulky and having a little bit of support from like Fake Out or Redirection or whatever. And then when Trick Room goes up, it can be difficult to really threaten a lot of offensive pressure. Hatterene does not have this problem.
No.
Obviously, it's immune to taunt thanks to Magic Bounce, but it has decent bulk, and then it sets Trick Room, and then it starts clicking buttons and doing a lot of damage. And so the advantage that you get from Sentra is that, one, it hits the field and it has Frisk. And so you can figure out what items your opponent has, which is really, really valuable in closed team sheet. Because not only do you know where important things like Covert Cloak and Focus Sash are, but you also can glean a lot of information about like what set they're running and what they're trying to do oftentimes. And so you can run Focus Sash, you go for Follow Me, and then one of two things happens. Either Sentret dies, which allows you to bring in something like Rhyperior or Scrafty, or it stays alive, and if they hit it with something like Taunt, you still have Super Fang, you still have Knockoff, and if they don't go for Taunt, you still have Helping Hand, you can Follow Me again, and then eventually, and so it's like you are allowing Hatterene to take advantage of its own Trick Room turns, while also providing a lot of really good value, whether it's like a pivot, or consistent damage, or item removal, or whatever. And so it's like, is Duskull a real Pokemon? No.
No.
But it is also the only Pokemon that I think doesn't bring any value to this team, and I think it's fine. Because the rest of these members are just so fucking bonkers here, dude.
I never thought I'd look at a Sentret and go, huh, that actually works.
Me neither.
But yeah, because that's where I started when I was sitting there staring at this team trying to pick it apart. I was like, but Sentret is, oh my, it actually works. Like,
Yeah. And it's slow too. I want to say it's based like 20 or 30.
it's 20 speed. Yep,
Yeah, because it's a baby.
it's
And
just a baby.
it's just so good, dude. This team is like ludicrous, I think is the way I would
Yeah,
put
that
it.
is a good way to put it. Truthfully, I can't even lie.
It
Yeah,
hurts my head, Toby.
man, I know. Joey, you're hurting his head. What the fuck, man? Can you? I can't believe you did this, Joey. What the fuck?
Joey, I don't want to fight. I don't know if Joey's actually on my schedule. Hold on.
You might not be.
If he's not, I'm popping off.
Well, moving on to number one.
Yeah.
And here we go.
And in the number one slot, to no one's surprise, is our glorious King Sasso and the tyrannical Tinkatons, with a roster of Galarian Moltres, Comfey, Harakion, Electabuzz, Blaziken, Snorlax, Lurantis, Slowbro, Tinkatink, and Dragapult. And can I just say, Sasso, what the fuck are you doing to me? Like, do you want me to die? Do you hate me? Like, this team makes me anxious. So obviously, you have Galarian Moltres and Comfey. Very strong, notoriously. Everybody knows Comfey Goltrace is good. But also, you have a beat-up option with Terrakion. You have good redirection in Electabuzz. You have insane speed tiers with Dragapult, and then, like, Terrakion is kind of pretty fast, and then, like, Blaziken gets speed boost, obviously, and then you look at, like, the Trick Room side of things, and it's like Snorlax is insanely slow. Slowbro is a really good Trick Room setter, and Lurantis has a pretty decent speed tier as well. And then the bulk here is, like, fucking unreal. Like, Terrakion is like bulkier than you think, especially if you invest in it. Eviolite Electabuzz. Blaziken isn't really bulky, but like Snorlax obviously is really difficult to remove. Lurantis can be really hard to remove if it's like spamming Contrary Superpower and giving itself defense boosts, and then like if it has an Assault Vest, that's really good. Slowbro obviously is really bulky, and then Dragapult isn't bulky, but it's like it doesn't need to be. There's plenty of bulk on this team, and it's like everything functions on its own, but it's just elevated to absolutely insane levels thanks to Comfey. Like, Snorlax can click Belly Drum guilt-free.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to access to Floral Healing. And then obviously Galarian Moltres can activate like a weakness policy if you want to. It can activate Berserk multiple times. Thanks to regular easy healing from Comfey, and then it's like it enables Terrakion, you hit it with beat ups, and then it goes to +4, and then it takes a move or two, and then you just like heal it right back up. Blaziken, again, speed boost, and then Swords Dance, and then Floral Healing, and like Lurantis, again, like Assault Vest superpower next to Floral Healing Comfey. I just don't know how you get rid of that. Especially considering the fact that it can Terra, and like Slowbro obviously is doing its own thing. It's setting Trick Room, it's being supportive and whatever. And then like Dragapult doesn't take a ton of advantage off of that, but like Dragapult makes up for honestly some, like, the speed tiers are good, but Dragapult is what really pulls it together. Like, if it wasn't for Dragapult, I would have meaner things to say about speed tiers, but, like, being forced to calc to outrun 142, I think, base speed is, like, it takes so much investment, even with Tailwind, and then it can be offensive with, like, Choice Band, like, whatever sets, or you can run Power Herb, Phantom Force, or you can run supportive sets with Thunder Wave, and then obviously a beat up user again for boosting Terrakion. And it's like there's so much flexibility, and like Comfey is really enabling a lot of things, but it's like the team functions without it, you know? Like, and it's not just floral healing either. Like, it gets both forms of speed control. It gets other good supportive moves that, again, I did research on and then forgot when we started recording this video.
Huh.
But it's like the amount of offense that is present here while simultaneously being so hard to take down just feels really unmatched to me. And honestly, I think you might even get a little bit of value out of Tinkatink. Like, the fake out is really nice, and I think Feint is, like, really good, especially on a team like this, making it so that your opponent can't reliably protect without dealing with this one pointer. I think Feint is a really valuable move, and obviously, like, against Thunderwave and whatnot. But like, even aside from the worst Pokemon on this team, it's like I like, how do you kill anything? How do you survive any of these hits? I don't know, and I don't think that I will.
The bulk is ridiculous. It's actually
Yeah.
ridiculous. And then like there is like a really it's a scary mix of like really good out the gate damage, but also a fuck ton of damage that just can come from setup, like nasty plots
Yeah.
out of Moltres, out of contrary boost into Lurantis, swords dances into Blaziken or Terrakion. I mean, there's or belly drum into Snorlax too, like you said, with floral healing into Comfey. This is, I do think, unmatched in terms of just offensive output. In terms of just that in this division, I think that's makes it the strongest. And then the bulk too, like Gold Trace, obviously, I think struggles in a format where it's unable to Terra because it's weak to a lot of different stuff. But I do think when you have a priority healer like Comfey next to it, that makes that weakness a lot better, a lot more manageable.
Absolutely.
And when you build it right, if you can have those heals from Comfey, you can even stack Berserk boosts depending on how you're doing that.
Yeah.
So no notes there really. Electabuzz is really good redirection here. It's also really good speed control here.
Yep.
I fail to see anything about this team that I can really gripe about, other than, and stay with me, Raz.
Yep. I see it.
Where's the fucking ground type?
Another motherfucker with no ground type.
How do we let a ground type, no ground type, get number one? What the fuck is this shit?
I don't know. Honestly, this team is fucking insane. And I will say, if you think Joey's team is better than this team, you're wrong, because we're right all the time.
True.
But I respect it.
No, I can
Like,
see,
I get.
I can see the altering opinions there. Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah. Again, not correct. We are correct.
Not
all the
correct.
Time, 100%.
We're right.
But,
Yeah.
like, but at least it's like an opinion that I can be like, I get where you're coming from.
No, it's
But yeah, it's like, I just the more when I was taking notes, I looked at it and I was like, this team seems pretty good. And then I kept looking at it and I was like, wait a minute. What the fuck?
I literally I can't gripe about it literally at all. I mean, this is the prime example of how to make a good low tier Terra Gold Trace team. There's just this is the blueprint that should be used for future people who draft around it in future seasons of this league. This is what you should do.
I'm hard.
I'm genuinely erect looking at it for sure.
It's crazy, which is wild because I fucking hate Gold Trace. I think that one's
I
cringe.
despise it. I actually despise it. But I can't deny this team is just good. It's just really
so good.
And
it's
it does my heart proud that in both divisions, 2 of my admins got number 1 spot. I mean, my God.
So true.
Oh my God.
You really know how to pick them.
I'm a proud papa. What can I say? I don't know.
So true.
Fuck. I can't even talk about it anymore. I feel like it's literally everything we need to say has been said. This is a phenomenal fucking team. Your bulk is great. Your offense is great. Your utilities are great. Your speed tiers are great. Your defensive synergies are phenomenal. I don't know what else to say. I mean, just look at it.
Well, if that would be my advice, is like, if you don't get why this team is good, turn your screen on.
Yeah. No, completely.
and it's annoying. But yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. What I will say is, Toby, I don't know where you want to put it. We haven't like talked about this. I plan to make my notes public.
Sure.
Um, there's we have a tier list in the next slide to visualize all of our placements for everything. There's an explanation for what the tiers mean in the notes. There's really detailed breakdowns of basically every team. So if you're looking for more feedback and if you're looking for something to like read through, then I'll put those up just so you guys have access to them because
You know what?
I'm
I'll put the
generous.
notes in the description. That way
Let's
they're
fucking go.
public access.
Hell yeah. So yeah, just glance at them there. If you want more feedback, I don't know why you would. We went over everything and we talked about everything and we're right all the time. But
Yep,
like, if that
absolutely.
is something that you want to glance at, those will be available to you guys as well.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, Sasso, on number one. Congratulations on all of you guys for making some pretty decent teams, except for
Yeah, seriously.
a couple of you. But, you know, you can still do well with it. I believe in the coaches that have those teams, so good on
Yeah,
you.
and truly and genuinely, like I would only say that there are two like bad teams. You
Right.
know.
Yes. Absolutely. All
So
right.
yeah, good job, guys. Here's the final tier list.
This is the final rankings here. In 12th place, we have the Executors. In 11th place, we have the Durham Toros. 10th, the Haluka. 9th, the Kansas City Kelios. I almost said the Kelio City, Kansas. In
Real.
8th, the Pembroke Palafins. 7th, the Crystal Falls Cramorants. 6th, the Cerulean Saraledge. 5th, the Brooklyn Bigwelds. 4th, the Santaloon Storms. 3rd, the Great Lakes Aces. 2nd, the San Diego Sandacondas. And in 1st, the Tyrannical Tinkatons. We made it. That's the end.
We did. And if you were wondering, oh, why we have to wait this long? Look at how long this video is.
Fuck.
Look at how long the notes in the description are, and you tell me why you think it took this long.
I don't know how long in total it'll be once I get everything spliced together and edited, but I think it might be close to 3 hours.
You're goddamn right.
And my God, you know what? There's nobody I'd rather spend 3 hours talking about random bullshit like this with than you. Let me tell you.
I absolutely agree. I mean that's what I'm here for. You know, I was like, you were like, do you want to do PRs? And I was like, yeah. And on the inside, I was like, I get to hang out.
Yeah, I get to talk to Raz today.
Hell yeah. Also, Toxic. I'm the fucking Yap Master.
Yeah, nah, absolutely. This video is already. I know it's longer than the Talonflame one, so that's how you know.
Never forget it.
You know what? If there was any illusion that Toxic was the bigger yapper, let this video serve as evidence to the contrary.
Contrary Lorantis. Shout out Assassin.
Ooh. All right. Well, thank you all for watching, everybody. We appreciate your time. Hopefully, you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. I'm sure Raz did too. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
And we will catch you all in the next thing the ADL Media does. I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be yet. Probably coach interviews when I get around to it, but we'll see. And we'll hopefully see more of Raz in the future as well.
You're damn right.
Alrighty, friends. You have a wonderful night, evening, morning, whatever the fuck you're doing, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.